Ada for refusing to talk to my ex after everything that happened. I, 34M, am struggling with whether I'm in the wrong for refusing to talk to my ex, Sarah, 29F, not her real name. There's a lot of history here, and I'll do my best to explain everything clearly. In mid-2022, I met Sarah at work, and we hit it off immediately. I fell for her quickly, and it didn't take long before we started dating. However, early in our relationship, Sarah broke up with me over something minor. To make matters worse, she made a scene in front of everyone at work. I was devastated but didn't want to leave my job at first. Eventually, I realized I still had feelings for her, and seeing her every day became too painful. That's when I decided to quit and find a new job. We lived close to each other, so we bumped into each other frequently over the next few months. We started talking again, but even though I still had feelings for her, I couldn't bring myself to consider getting back together. What she had done hurt me deeply. After a couple of months, she told me she regretted breaking up with me over something so minor. She admitted that doing it in front of everyone was wrong and that she had been thinking about it ever since. She seemed genuinely remorseful, and I could see she meant it. Feeling that her apology was sincere, I asked if she wanted to give our relationship another try. She agreed, and by early 2023, we were officially back together. 1 year later, things were going great. We talked about marriage and building a future together, which made me feel ready to take the next step. I decided to surprise her with a proposal and started working extra hours to save for a house, so we could marry not long after. I didn't tell her why I was working so much because I wanted it to be a complete surprise. Then, out of nowhere, she asked for a break. I was blindsided, and when I asked why, she refused to explain. Around the same time, I noticed she had been talking non-stop about a new guy at her workplace. But suddenly, she stopped mentioning him altogether, which made me suspicious. Confused and hurt, I reached out to one of my close friends, Emily, not her real name, who, along with her boyfriend, still worked at the same place as Sarah. I vented to Emily about what was going on and asked if she knew anything. She said she didn't because she worked in a different department, but she promised to ask around. A few days later, Emily got back to me. She told me that Sarah had been feeling like I was distant lately, especially with me working extra hours and not going out much. Emily said some of Sarah's colleagues had been encouraging her to take a break, claiming I wasn't treating her well and wasn't as invested in the relationship. On top of that, they were trying to match her up with the new guy at work, saying they'd make a better pair. I told Emily about my plans to propose and buy a house for Sarah and me. That was the reason I'd been working so much. I wanted to surprise her with something big. After about 2 weeks, Sarah called me and asked to meet up. I agreed but told her up front that I needed an explanation for why she wanted a break before we could discuss anything else. She brought up how distant I had seemed, saying it made her feel like I wasn't as invested in the relationship anymore. I told her that if she had just talked to me about it, she would have known there was a reason for my behavior, but now, it didn't matter anymore. Then she mentioned the new guy at her workplace. I said his name before she could, and she looked surprised, asking how I knew. I told her I wasn't an idiot. I'd noticed how she suddenly stopped talking about him after bringing him up all the time. She swore that she had never cheated on me. I replied that looking for someone better at the first sign of trouble could be considered cheating by some. At that point, I told her I didn't want to hear whatever else she had to say. Whether or not she wanted to get back together didn't matter, I was breaking up with her regardless. The breakup deeply hurt me. I couldn't bear staying in the same place, so I asked my company for a transfer and used the money I'd saved for the proposal to start over in a new city. While talking to Emily, the friend I had vented to before, she apologized to me. She admitted that she had slipped up and told Sarah about my plans to propose and buy a house. Emily said Sarah broke down crying after hearing that. I appreciated Emily's honesty, but it didn't change what had happened. By mid-December last year, I returned to my hometown to spend Christmas and New Year's with my family. Some friends wanted to organize a party to get everyone together, since many of us, myself included, had moved away and were only visiting for the holidays. Sarah was invited too. We barely interacted that night, just a quick hi in passing. At one point, I glanced at her and saw her smiling while chatting with a group of women. That smile brought back so many memories. I realized that seeing her smile still made me feel the same way I did the first time I saw it. I thought to myself, how screwed up am I that I still feel this way? Despite those lingering feelings, I was still sad and deeply hurt by how things had ended. Looking back, I also started to blame myself. I should have paid more attention to how she was feeling. I could have told her about the extra work and why I was doing it. Maybe things would have turned out differently. Later that evening, one of my friends mentioned that Sarah's relationship with the guy from her work had only lasted a couple of months. After the holidays, I planned to return to the city where I now lived. My vacation ended on January 6th, so I decided to leave on Friday. That way, I'd have Saturday to sort everything out at home and prepare for the week ahead, with Sunday to relax before going back to work. Before I left, one of my friends from back home called me. He said he had a favor to ask on behalf of someone else and warned me that I wouldn't like it. I could already feel my stomach sinking. Then he told me it was Sarah. She was moving to the same city where I lived to work at her relative's company, and she needed a ride. He asked if I could take her. I didn't even think about it before I said no. The idea of being stuck in a car with her for hours was too much to bear. It would have been painfully awkward, just like the party, and I wasn't ready to put myself through that. He told me that Sarah and I needed to talk, but I wasn't having any of it. I went back home, and last week, I went for a run and stopped to rest a little in a park when I heard a familiar voice say, "Hi." It was Sarah. She tried to start a conversation by asking how I was and mentioning that we didn't get a chance to talk at the party, but I cut her off, saying I didn't want to talk to her. She told me not to be like that we needed to have a conversation, but I said no. She asked how I could still resent her after almost a year and after everything we'd been through, but I told her it wasn't resentment. I was very honest. I told her that thinking about her, talking about her, or even seeing her still hurts a lot, and that's why I couldn't talk to her. She said that was exactly why we needed to talk. I didn't see the point. I just walked away. Since then, Sarah's tried to approach me twice more, and I've shut her down both times. Some of my friends think I'm being too harsh and that I should talk to her for closure. Others say it's not okay to torture her over what happened forever. But that's not what this is about. I don't have any resentment or negative feelings toward her anymore. I even recognize now that I share some of the blame, but it still hurts. I can't talk to her because it's like reopening an old wound that never fully healed. So, Aita for refusing to talk to her. TLDR, my ex, Sarah, broke off our relationship almost a year ago, and I've since moved on as best I can. Recently, she's been trying to talk to me, but I told her I can't because it still hurts too much. Some friends think I'm being too harsh, but I don't resent her, I just don't want to reopen old wounds. Aita for refusing to talk to her. Reading comments. Reply, thank you all for your advices. I just want to explain better one thing, my friends are not calling me or messaging me saying that I should talk to her, that's just the opinion of some of them when the subject was brought up. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, I don't think you're an but I do think you resent her more than you are willing to admit and haven't actually worked through it internally yet. Reply, you might be right. Sometimes I think I'm totally over it, but then I realize it still haunts me. Commenter 2, some people might say you need closure, but it seems like you've already processed a lot of the situation, and talking to her could just bring up more pain. You don't owe her anything, especially when it's affecting your well-being. You've already made it clear how you feel, and you're setting boundaries, which is important for healing. Reply, that's what I think, but I don't know, sometimes I'm not sure. Commenter 3, moving to your city, wanting a ride there where you're trapped in the car with her for hours, ignoring your rejections and being persistent. Those are not the actions of someone who wants closure to move on. That's is someone trying to wiggle their way back into your good graces. Reply, good point. Commenter 4, once was a mistake, twice was a lesson and a third time is you being stupid. That's like watching the same movie but expecting a different ending, don't do it to yourself. Reply, there won't be a third time, I was already sure about not going back to her, and you guys' comments are helping me make up my mind about not talking to her. Update 1. Hey everyone, I wanted to give an update and thank you all for your input. I took the time to read through every comment, and while I didn't respond to all of them, it was only because I didn't have anything to add. I'm truly grateful for everyone who shared their thoughts. It has been incredibly helpful. After reading everything and thinking it through, I've decided to stick to my decision not to talk to Sarah. Something I forgot to mention in my original post, though I did tell a few commenters, is that I blocked her everywhere after we broke up the second time. Over the last few days, it seems like her persistence has started to backfire. Some of our mutual friends, including the ones who initially told me I should talk to her, have become frustrated with her constant attempts to contact me. Apparently, they've started turning on her because of it. 3 days ago, Emily, the friend I vented to back then, made a post on social media about stalkers. She didn't name Sarah, but a lot of people picked up on what she meant. I've also seen several comments on my original post suggesting that Sarah might have been stalking me. Her job in the same city and her coincidental appearance at the park all line up with that theory. For what it's worth, I know her uncle owns a company here, so maybe that is really why she moved. But honestly, it's not my problem, and I'm not gonna look into it. Things have been quieter. Friends have dropped the subject, and Sarah hasn't tried to reach out again. That is, until yesterday. I watched the UFC event with some coworkers. When it ended, I was heading to my car when my phone rang. It was one of our mutual friends calling. She said she had been talking to Sarah and asked if she could pass along a message. I sighed but told her to make it quick. The message was simple. Sarah said she understands why I don't want to talk to her. She promised she wouldn't try to reach out again but added that she still thinks we need to talk. She said the door is open if I ever want to. I told my friend I didn't have a message to pass back and asked her not to bring up Sarah again in our conversations. If what Sarah said is true, it's a relief, but I'm not holding my breath. I wouldn't be surprised if she tries something else. Maybe she thinks giving me space will make me go to her, but it won't. That chapter of my life is closed. Right now, I just want to focus on myself. I probably won't be dating anyone anytime soon. If there is one thing I've learned, it's that I need to get to know people better before jumping into a relationship. I've also been thinking about how loosely I use the word friend. That is another part of my life I need to rethink. Some of the people I have called friends have proven they don't have my best interests at heart. A few people suggested therapy in the comments, and I'll admit, it is something I've been considering. For now, I'm giving myself time to heal on my own, but if I still don't feel right after a while, I will look into it. Thanks again to everyone who took the time to comment. Your advice has been a huge help in sorting all this out. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, good for you for sticking to your boundaries. It sounds like you're taking positive steps for yourself. Reply, yes, just moving forward instead of thinking about the past. Commenter 2, it sounds like you are doing well and moving on. Keep focusing on yourself and enjoying what you have. If you feel you need counseling, do it when you are ready. Good luck. Reply, I think now people around me understand my situation and what I truly need, that will help a lot. Commenter 3, this is exactly why monkey branching is a terrible dating practice. It's cheating with extra steps, that's why she keeps pushing. She knows what she did, just like she knows what she lost. Yet, ironically she's too naive to understand that even if y'all got back together, you don't look at her the same. That's totally understandable. Reply, you're right, it would not be the same. Commenter 4, good for you with holding to your boundaries. The moment she wasn't getting the amount of attention she wanted, she sought out a coworker to monkey branch to. It was cheating. She wasn't remorseful as she began a relationship with that guy. All she wants now is to act like she didn't cheat on you and rekindle your relationship. She's already proven that she will cheat with whoever shows her attention. That's not someone to be in a relationship with. Have you not dated since the breakup? Personally, that helped me get over my ex-wife who cheated. It's been a year. There's someone special out there for you. Not every woman is like your ex. Good luck. Reply, I've dated other women since the breakup, just nothing serious. Update 2, first off, I just want to mention something. You know those YouTubers who take Reddit stories, narrate them, usually with AI, and post them with Minecraft gameplay in the background? Turns out, a bunch of them made videos about my posts. I don't really care, so it doesn't bother me. I just thought it was worth mentioning. Now for the actual update. There's been no sign of Sarah these past few weeks, and no one's brought her up in conversation either. That's a good thing. Then, last Tuesday, February 11th, I got a DM from Sarah's mother. She said she wanted to apologize for her daughter's behavior and asked me to call her. I've always had a great relationship with Sarah's parents. They're genuinely good people. Even during both breakups, they were always respectful and never overstepped. I didn't really want to talk about Sarah anymore, but I also didn't want to ignore her mother. After thinking it over for a few minutes, I decided I'd call her. However, if she tried to convince me to speak with Sarah or anything along those lines, I'd politely end the conversation. When she answered, she put me on speaker so Sarah's father could join in. I half expected to hear Sarah's voice too, but fortunately that didn't happen. The conversation itself was actually really good. They started by apologizing for Sarah's recent behavior. I immediately told them they had nothing to apologize for, but they insisted, saying they felt it was the right thing to do. They also told me they had no idea what had been going on until recently. Once they found out, they called Sarah and had a long talk with her. Her father admitted that it was the kind of conversation he'd expect to have with a teenager, not an almost 30-year-old woman. Sarah promised them she'd stay away from me and seek therapy. I felt relieved, not just for myself, but for her too. Everything that happened between us wasn't great, but I genuinely wish her the best. I hope she finds happiness. Before we ended the call, I thanked her parents and reiterated how much I respected and admired them. Now, I can finally say with certainty that this is over. Sarah would never betray her parents' trust. Thank you all for the advice. It really meant a lot. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, I think it's time to finally move on from all of this. Reply, yeah. I've been feeling better lately. Commenter 2, so glad to read that. But even if things start to look more peaceful for you, please consider therapy. Sarah hurt you deeply and not just once. She betrayed your trust and broke your heart in a way that even 1 year later it still hurts. Therapy is just so that you find closure and that your healing process can come to an end if you are ready. Keep in mind that Sarah left you with a lot of emotional baggage that could potentially strain an otherwise healthy future relationship. You deserve happiness, and a therapist might guide you to the point where you can close the chapter. Sarah, emotionally. I wish you all the best. Reply, thanks, I haven't made a decision about that yet. Commenter 3, out of curiosity, how did the parents find out about Sarah's behavior? Reply, they didn't tell me, I didn't ask. My guess, through others. Stories number 2, after my 24F 24M committed suicide, his family don't want to show me his notes. I dated him for a year, until he, unexpectedly, broke up with me last September. We've been good friends for years and we still remained friends afterwards. Unexpectedly, I learned he committed suicide last month. He OD'd on a strong sedative and lost his life. I was in total shock, gutted and devastated. Everyone who knew him were just as shocked. Sadly, in hindsight, I could now tell something was wrong. He exhibited some signs of unhappiness. I have been mourning his tragic death for the past month. I contacted his family to return some of his belongings. The family now tell me that he wrote 2 notes before he died, one directly addressed to me. They are refusing to give me the letter for no apparent reason. They're just asking me to respect their emotions, which I genuinely do. I am grieving as much as they are. I don't know if there's a protocol here, but it seems to me they're going against his wishes. I want to give them their space to mourn, but I genuinely need that note. What do I do? Edit. I want to clarify this. I asked them specifically if it's a bad note about me and my behavior. They said it's nothing like that at all and I shouldn't think that way. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, I don't know much about to handle family, but I think it's best just to wait this out for whatever outcome. For a massive caution OP, I know the obvious motivation is to want to see a suicide note, but please be mindful that real life is very different than fiction is this regards. People often write notes in a very bad state, sometimes even when suffering a mental health episode. In any case, they are not usually written with much accountability and can be confusing, hurtful and not usually a comfortable resolution. Commenter 2, they never should have told you about the note addressed to you because it's cruel to not allow you to read it, and now you're left wondering. They are acting selfish here, however their grief may be a big reason for that selfishness. Perhaps give it some time and when they are ready they might give you the note. Sorry for your loss. Update. A while ago I wrote this post and asked for advice. I got to read the note, and it opened more problems than it solved. I was approached by his older sister who was okay giving me the letter. Before he died, he apparently wanted to see me but wasn't conscious enough when he asked. His sister says there is something she too doesn't know about, but speculates that they just thought he wanted to change his mind. I sat down and read it yesterday. It is awfully heartbreaking. He said he was sorry but he couldn't find a way to tolerate life. He said he always felt like he's not in the right place, and was mentally induced to feel blue. He wrote about his mental health, saying he was sure I'd understand. Contrary to my worries, he said I was something exceptional in his life. He apologized again and, at the end, included names of 2 friends he'd made whom he wanted to help. He wants me to call for a wellness check on them, which I did today. I'm thankful he is not remembering me badly, quite the opposite. But it still hurts so badly. I can't stop crying. Every moment, I get this feeling that my heart was penetrated by something. He was unhappy, but he was always so quiet about it. It says much about me, that I should have picked up those clues. He suppressed things too deep, unfortunately. I feel tragically sad, I genuinely miss him. I am still not sure why his parents hid it and their reasoning to think he was changing his mind. Even his sister doesn't know and is questioning it. I will leave it, as I know how devastated they are. I guess I'll just stay curious forever. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, I'm so sorry for your loss. I have lost several friends and family members to suicide and it does make you feel like you should have done so much more. Please understand that someone's suicide does not say anything about you. The fact that you were a light in his life is a wonderful thing. Please let that fact comfort you as it was meant to. Your ex was hurting and finally felt that ending it was the only relief. I pray to never understand that feeling. Commenter 2, I lost my partner of 7 years to suicide. 7 goddamn years of vigilance, alcohol abuse issues, past self-harm and previous attempts, and still I did not see it coming. The other times, looking back, were with less determination. There were always people who might and did happen across him, and the attempts, although serious, upsetting, alarming, were impulsive, and it had been years since. He was the happiest I'd ever seen him, and really happy, not the delirious drunk kind. He was finally making moves to sobriety, he'd reconnected with family and doing wholesome healthy stuff with his brother who he loved. We all thought he was doing well and a calmness was felt. Then he was dead. Just like that. My point is, it's common not to know, as I've also found out from sharing stories, and it's human to wonder what you could have done to prevent it. Our minds make sense of something so awful this way. I think there must have been something I missed, otherwise it does not make sense. My partner also left no note, which was a surprise as he loved to write and often used it emotively as an outlet. I felt abandoned and robbed of a goodbye. I'm glad you have that, although it of course comes with its own set of fresh pain. Navigation is not easy, but you will learn to walk with your feeling as it settles inside of you, and you'll be okay, despite of how impossible it feels. Stories number 3, Aita. For my response when my sister's husband commented on my husband's manhood. My husband has been sick for few months now and recently had a surgery. My parents hosted dinner for him and invited the whole family. My sister's husband Mike is the tell it as it is type of man. Basically the brutally honest type. My sister says she loves him for his honesty, but because of it we've had issues in the past. After dinner, we were sitting down while my husband was in another room. He was getting some rest. Mike looked at me and asked if my husband was still good in bed, because he had read that when men get sick, their performance would get lower. I was floored by his question. Everyone was looking at me in silence. It was absolutely awkward. My sister smiled at me as a sign to let it go, but instead, I responded, well, at least better than men who can't even impregnate their women. Now this is where I might be the AH. Mike and my sister has suffered from infertility for 10 years, and it's on Mike's side. This response caused a huge argument, and although Mike stormed off and didn't say anything, my sister went off calling me abhorrent and shaming me for going low and using her husband's infertility against him. I told her he insulted my husband's manhood, but she said I took this whole thing out of context and made it personal since he was just talking about men in general. After the argument she and Mike left and my mom demanded I apologize. My husband didn't even know what we were arguing about. Mom told him I was arguing with my sister over dessert. Mom said I was in the wrong for hurting my sister's feelings with what I said and told me to apologize, but I still refused. Aita. Stories number 4. Found out my 35M girlfriend, 32F, has been lying to me about her finances. I, 35M, recently discovered my girlfriend, 32F, of 3 years has been lying to me about her finances and that she makes about 8K a month after taxes while I make about 7K a month. She also got a promotion at her work a few months ago that she has not mentioned to me yet. To put this into context, we live in a very expensive city because of our jobs and she refused to pay a significant portion of the rent since we moved in together. She only agreed to spend $500 of her own money on rent. That left me to foot the remaining $2,100. Before she moved in, I shared the apartment with a friend and we both paid $1,300 each. The owner has raised the rent steadily over the last 2 years and now we are supposed to pay $3,000. That means I'll be paying $2,500 a month or $30,000 a year. We could move to a cheaper place, but that could mean a 3-hour commute, which is not ideal. My girlfriend continues to refuse to pay more in rent despite her making more, and the financial strain is getting to me. I barely have any savings. I pay for almost everything and she spends most of her money on her makeup and designer clothes and fancy dinners with her friends. When I confronted her about her lying to me about her finances, she told me she makes $60K a year before we moved in. She said it's my responsibility as a man to pay the rent and she can't afford to pay half the rent and also live the lifestyle she wants to live. She also has no financial discipline or any idea where all that money disappears to. I'm sorry I'm ranting, but I just feel frustrated and don't have anyone to talk to about all this. I feel so frustrated and drained. I am angry and I feel I have been deceived by someone I thought I could share my life with. I feel totally lost. Like I have been a fool the past 3 years and I've wasted my time dating her when she clearly can't be honest with me. I have tried many times to be reasonable and understanding. It just doesn't work. She is just a leech trying to drain every single penny out of me. I'm starting to have second thoughts on our life together. Maybe we shouldn't be getting married after all. So what do you guys think I should do? Stories number 5. Girlfriend, 21F, is furious at me, 21M, after my grandmother spoke badly and derogatorily about her in Spanish right in front of her. I've been dating this girl, we'll call her Olivia, for 4 months. She is of Jamaican descent but born in the US. I was born in Cuba but came to the States when I was 1. I would say I'm very, very Americanized, though I grew up speaking Spanish at home. The area we currently live in doesn't have many Latino people, so it's not assumed that people understand Spanish. When I started dating her, I asked her if she could speak Spanish and she said, not really, and that her Spanish sucked, and we didn't really address it further. I was really eager to introduce her to my family as I thought my mom and dad would love her, and they had been asking about her for a while. So I invited them to our house for dinner with my mom, my dad, my grandmother, and my teenage brother. My abuela can't speak English much at all, but everyone else can. My abuela can be very judgmental and cranky and basically an asshole at times, especially since her husband died and then she had a stroke 3 years ago. I told her before to be nice. However, I also told them she couldn't speak Spanish because that's what I assumed. So Olivia came over and everything was going good for the most part. She got along well with my family and my mom especially was super nice to her. However, my grandmother decided she was in a nasty mood and started talking shit about her. She said that she didn't expect Olivia to be so dark and how she looked more African. She asked if she came from a good family, and said if my grandfather was alive he would not approve of her and it's better to date a girl who can speak Spanish since and most black people won't even bother to learn it. She even said that my last girlfriend was much prettier than her. This is honestly blatantly untrue. Olivia is gorgeous and most people say so. She made sure not to make it obvious she was talking about her and didn't gesture to her at all and mostly faced the TV when she spoke. I was mortified and couldn't believe she was saying all this. I told her to stop twice, but since I assumed Olivia didn't understand her I mostly brushed it off and tried to ignore her since I didn't want to make a scene and I didn't want to make it apparent to Olivia that she was talking about her. Olivia is the biggest sweetheart but is really insecure and has suffered from anxiety in the past and I just didn't want to make it worse. My mom told her to be quiet as well, but my grandmother just did not give a fuck and continues with snide comments. To make things worse, my dad and brother just laughed at the absurdity of the situation. I don't think they really found it funny, but it was more of a, there she goes again, crazy abuela, type thing. Olivia acted pleasant for most of the night but then suddenly claimed she had migraines and she needed to leave. She thanked them all but left in a hurry. I already suspected she could understood some of what was said and I felt terrible. After she left I told off my grandmother for how she acted. I tried calling Olivia that night, but she ignored my calls until the next evening when she finally answered. I asked if she was okay and she admitted that she took Spanish for 5 years and although she has no confidence to speak it, her Spanish comprehension is fairly good. I apologized profusely but she was angry. She was mad since I didn't tell her I had a racist family. She was mad that my dad and brother laughed at her expense and was furious that I didn't defend her or stand up to my grandmother. I tried to explain the whole not wanting to cause a scene thing but she didn't buy it at all. She said she felt like an idiot because her friend told her a lot of Cubans are racist and she defended me so much and accused her friend of being a bigoted jerk and how much I embarrassed her and made her feel like crap. So I just don't know what to do to fix this. She is furious at me and I understand why, but I was really serious with her and in love with her. We work so well together. I don't want to lose her over this. I feel like she thinks my whole family are racist assholes as well when it's definitely not the case. My abuela sucks but my family has no choice but to put up with her. My mom and dad do not have a racist bone in their body and my brother isn't either. I agree my dad and brother were shitty for laughing at my grandmother's rants but they didn't know what else to do and were more laughing at how obnoxious she was being. Is there any way I can possibly come back from this? Anyone have similar experiences? I just don't know what to do to make it up to her. She really is angry and I feel like I hurt her a lot. TLDR, invited my black girlfriend to my family's home. My grandmother was an asshole and said racist comments about her in Spanish thinking that she couldn't understand. I didn't say much to defend her because I didn't want to cause a scene and I also assumed she couldn't understand. Turns out she did and is now furious at me. I'm not sure what to do. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Being unable to speak a language isn't the same as being able to understand it. I can't speak French but I understand it quite well. You absolutely should have stood up for her. It isn't okay for someone, I don't care how old they are or how long ago they lost a spouse, to speak like that about someone. If I were your GF I would be mortified and upset also. As far as what you can do, apologize and tell her you're sorry that these things were said. You didn't want to create a scene and truly didn't know she understood Spanish so well, which is why you didn't get more upset in the moment and were going to address it afterwards with your family. Reply. Yeah, that was my fault. We honestly did not talk much about her Spanish speaking skills. I just assumed she couldn't understand it either because she never mentioned she could and she said her Spanish sucked. We don't live in a heavily Hispanic area, so it's not like we're surrounded by people speaking Spanish, and even the schools offer multiple languages other than Spanish. I feel like a moron. Update. People gave me a really hard time in my original post, and it really made me realize how much of a dumbass I was being. I apologized profusely to Olivia and called out my extremely stupid behavior and basically begged for forgiveness. After a couple more days of being mad at me, she was willing to talk to my parents and my brother, who apologized and told her that they really loved her and that they didn't mean to hurt her. They tried to explain the situation with my grandmother and why she behaved the way she did, and they were just trying to minimize drama, but that what she was saying was wrong and they should have stood up to her. My mother got her a gift set from Bath and Body Works, costume jewelry and chocolate to go along with the apology. So Olivia did forgive me and my family, which I am so relieved about because I really am crazy about this girl. I'm definitely not going to take this for granted. A week ago my brother, Olivia, and I went to an amusement park, and my brother and her actually got along really well, and she's definitely convinced he doesn't secretly hate black people. I never thought my brother was racist. When he was in middle school he dated a black girl. He's only 15, so I definitely don't blame him for what happened. It was my dad's fault for laughing. But yeah, he really likes her and is glad she doesn't hate him. My mom invited Olivia to a beach with our family on Saturday. My abuela stayed at home, and although she mostly stayed by me and my brother, she seemed to get along reasonably with my parents and seems to believe their apology. She was a bit hesitant to go. I have told my grandmother that if she wants me to be actively part of her life she must apologize to Olivia. My grandmother actually agreed to apologize, but my GF doesn't want to talk to her, and I told her I will not force her to be around her, but I did tell her that my grandmother is sorry for the way she behaved. So yeah, that's my update. I appreciate all the replies no matter how harsh. It really made me realize my stupidity. Still have a lot of growing up to do, but I am really happy she took me back. TLDR, Olivia forgave me after my parents and I apologized, and we are still together. She still understandably doesn't want to talk to my grandmother though. Stories number 6. I, 36M, think I just found out I have a son. How do I approach his mother, 37F? So my world has been turned upside down over the last 24 hours. I've got 2 kids, 8 and 2, or so I thought. My oldest has an assignment for school to write a report on an interesting relative. My family is boring, but I did recall having a great-great-great-granduncle who was a member of Congress. So I thought we'd start there. I logged into Ancestry and had a notification, you and, random woman's name, share DNA. Thought it was probably a distant cousin or something. Clicked it. It said predicted relationship, parent-child. I called my mom to make sure her account didn't get hacked since I knew she had it done. She said she used 23andMe for her testing, so I looked up this woman on Facebook. Came to the realization that this was someone I hooked up with in college. I used Truthfinder to find out more about her. She appears to be married and has a husband, an older kid, and 2 younger kids. They look like the typical suburban family. The older kid looks like as awkward as I did as a teenager. Spitting image. I'm guessing she did a test for him using her name. I have a flood of emotions right now. Anger being the first. If my math is right, he's around 18, don't remember the exact timing, and I've missed out on basically his entire childhood. I was absolutely in no place to raise a kid at that time in my life and probably wouldn't have ended up being able to go to med school. At the same time, I never got the choice to know, and that's what upsets me more. I know my family would have helped me out. I haven't told anyone this, not even my spouse. I'm wrestling with guilt. I really want to reach out. I don't want to throw turmoil into a family, but I also feel like I shouldn't have to miss out on more of his life. He has an Instagram account, but it's private, and reaching out straight to him would be overwhelming, not to mention creepy. Where do I start? Do I call Ancestry? Reach out to her directly? Do I get a lawyer? I don't even know how that works because I live abroad now. Thanks in advance. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, did she not know where to find you? Why would she not want you to know when it happened? I am so sorry this happened this way. Please talk to your spouse before you do anything. Reply, yeah, I'm almost certain we were friends on my old Facebook, which I deactivated about 10 years ago when I finished med school. For some reason when I got my first iPhone, it transferred all my Facebook contacts over to my Apple contacts or whatever. Her name is in my phone, under her maiden name, which I deduced from Truthfinder, but I have hundreds of random people I used to be Facebook friends with on there. Never got around to deleting all those useless entries. Commenter 2, what if she didn't know who the father was? Women can be pregnant for a few months without even knowing. I had 5 menstrual cycles with my firstborn. He was a huge surprise. Now can you go back and pinpoint every date of everyone you had unprotected sex with at that time? Why should she be discriminated when you did the same thing? But you didn't have to physically carry the child. You just got to walk away from a decision you made too. Now is a good time to realize how important teaching your children about protecting themselves. I almost feel like this is some kind of lesson in your current reality as well. I'm not judging you one bit, but you have to take her view of this into perspective before you go pointing fingers. The only victim here is the child. Reply, yeah, I deserve to know from the very beginning. We were friends on Facebook. She could have reached out when she knew she was pregnant. Commenter 3, would she have known you had plans to move abroad back then, or was the move a more recent thing? Reply, I live in Canada. I'm only a 4.5-hour drive from where they live, which is also near where I'm originally from. Moving here was a recent thing. I had no plans to do so in college. OOP explains what his profile shows of the possible relationship with a child based on identifying details such as the sex of the DNA owner. Reply, doesn't show up on mine. Age and location at most. As well as the breakdown of ethnicity results. I can see that. Which is how I know she's not some long-lost sister, otherwise hers would be roughly the same ethnicity percentages as mine. This kid has some Italian in him. No Italian in my family. Update. Update due to popular demand, the day after my original post, I told my spouse and my parents. Both supportive of however I wanted to go about this. I went ahead and decided to contact my son's mother. I didn't want to give her the excuse that I was anything but proactive. When I went to send a message directly on Ancestry, I could no longer find the match. She had blocked me. My sister, who also used Ancestry but hadn't opened the app in ages, could still see the relation from hers. I decided to have my sister contact her, thinking it may be easier anyway coming from a woman and someone slightly less emotionally involved. Sister was blocked immediately, with no response. We both tried reaching out on Facebook. Blocked and blocked. My mom tried reaching out, so I wrote a brief message to my son and sent it to his Instagram. Without going into specifics, simply telling him that I think we share a connection, that I knew his mother when we were in college in 2006, and leaving the door open from there. Basically telling him I was likely his father without blatantly saying it. Let him put the pieces together in a way that made sense for him. Within a few hours, I received a message back. He knew exactly what I meant. He said that his mom told him his biological father was her high school sweetheart and was killed by a drunk driver while she was pregnant. He didn't know his mom had gone to college. He told me he had started questioning the story because she didn't know any of his relatives and only had one pic of his dad, and had no pics of her with this guy. He described this as a big question mark in my life, and that he had been wanting answers to for a while. He did provide the DNA for the ancestry test. His mom told him it was to help her locate the fictional father's family so they could come to his graduation party. Still, he said that he wanted to be 100% sure that I was who I said I was. So on the 6th, I drove down 5 hours to meet him at a Starbucks. I brought a paternity test. We did the samples and put it in the mail. The results came back yesterday as a match. I knew from the moment I saw him that he's my kid. A parent knows. On the photos I saw of him, he looked like me as a teenager. But when I saw him in person, I could see the resemblance to my dad as a young man. His voice even sounded like mine. It was tough holding myself together. It was the same flood of emotion I had when I saw my kids for the first time when they were born, a unique cocktail of emotions most parents know. Except now it's happening in a Starbucks, and the kid is a teenager who's 6 feet 1 inch, same height as me too. As for his mother's husband, my son told me he's never had a close relationship with him, especially after his twin brothers were born. They're 7. His mom is good to him and clearly did well raising him. He said he's always looked to his grandpa as his father figure, as he lived with his mom and her parents for the first several years of his life. He doesn't know what he wants to do with his life yet, but he's an honors student, on the swim team, and is hoping to get a scholarship for swimming. He has a girlfriend and is going to prom this spring. I'm so incredibly proud of how maturely he's handled all of this. We're keeping in contact on Instagram and agreed to meet this summer so he can meet the rest of the family, particularly my parents. He's especially excited to meet my 2-year-old daughter. He says he always wanted a little sister. I also encouraged him to go easy on his mom when the time comes to tell her because we were both so young when all this happened, and I'm sure she did the best she could do at the time, as misguided as it may have been. Sometimes adults tell lies to make things easier for kids to accept, and we can suddenly find ourselves caught up in those lies. It doesn't mean she wanted to lie to him, so all in all, a mixed ending. Would I have liked for his mom to have complied? Yes. It would have made things a hell of a lot easier. But I won't hold a grudge against his mom because my #1 priority is my son's well-being and he doesn't need chaos. I hope when she's finally told that she can come to terms with it, because they both deserve peace and he shouldn't have an unspoken rift between his parents. I think she will. She doesn't have much of a choice at this point. I hope now she understands that now that he's grown, I'm not trying to take him away from her. In some ways it's a blessing I didn't find out until now. Because had I found out sooner, lawyers and judges would have been involved and I don't think that would have been good for him. At least that's what I tell myself when I get upset. And I'm glad both of us have gotten some closure here, particularly him, as he's been dealing with this a lot longer than I have. Top comments. Commenter 1, happy ending yay. Commenter 2, wow. Twists and turns. I feel sad for your son. He was denied his father in his first 19 years despite him craving a father. But I find it comical the mother thought she could continue with the dead father lie. I can't believe she also lied about not going to college. Wonder if the husband knows. Shit might hit the roof for her soon lol. I bet your boy would be thrilled to see you at one of his swim competitions. Godspeed to both of you as you try to catch up the stolen time. Commenter 3, you handled this so beautifully. You have every right to be furious with the mom, but you're already looking out for your son's best interest when you barely know him. He's blessed to have you in his life now, hoping the way you handled this meeting and the grace you're showing his mom when she was very wrong leads to a peaceful coexistence between you two for your son's sake. Thanks for sharing. I was hoping to see an update someday. Congrats on your new son. Stories number 7. Found out my fiancé has been cheating on me for over a year. I thought I found my soul mate. I know, corny AF, but I did. We are both 23, and we have been together since we were 16. My first girlfriend. I wanted to marry her, so I proposed. She said yes. That was 5 months ago. 3 days ago, I got a DM on Instagram, from a guy asking if my fiancé's name was my girl. I said yes. Why? He said they had slept together a few days before. I didn't believe him, why would I? But he sent proof. He sent a video of them together, not doing anything sexual, but just together in a bedroom, which definitely isn't ours. I thought it could have just been an old video and this was some sort of weird joke, but then I saw the ring on her finger in the video. So it was recent. Now, I was worried. Why would a guy I've never met before, and my fiancé has never mentioned before, be with her in his bedroom? We kept speaking, and he said some personal stuff about her he shouldn't know, and now, I believed him. He also said she was bragging about how many guys she had been with recently, but never mentioned me. I asked him if he saw the ring. And he told me that she said that her husband died, and he didn't question it. He was really apologetic. I was pissed, but it wasn't his fault. I asked him if he could send more evidence so I could confront my fiancé, and he did. Some intimate selfies she sent, I could tell she took them in our house, mostly in our bathroom. The same day, I just straight up asked her. Are you cheating on me? She laughed and said no, and tried to play it off. So I asked her again, and told her to stop lying to me. She denied again, so I showed her my evidence of what this guy sent me. She kind of froze, and started trying to talk but it was all a jumble of words and nothing. So I asked her again, and she denied it. So I kept pushing, and she started crying. She admitted it, saying it's my fault because I wasn't giving her enough attention. I told her to get out of the house, it's my house, she moved in with me, I pay all the bills. She was begging me to let her talk. But I couldn't be bothered to listen to that. When she saw I wasn't going to listen to her, she grabbed some stuff in a bag and left, but not before screaming at me, telling me that she's slept with many guys, not just the one who messaged me. Maybe that was just to hurt me. But the guy said she was bragging about how many guys she sleeps with, so I don't know. She's been blowing up my phone for the past day. Begging me to talk to her, so she can explain. I don't know what to do. She has to come back to get her stuff. And I've been the saddest I've ever been. I have literally felt sick since she told me, and I've been trying not to cry. This fucking sucks. She was really the only person I had. I don't really have friends, and very few family who I'm close with. I just wanted to get it out there somewhere, maybe it'll make it easier to deal with. Stories number 8. I met him. I've always loved reading. I met someone, posts on here, and for the past couple weeks it's been in the back of my mind that maybe it's time to post my own. We matched on Bumble on a Friday night. We had a nice conversation via text, and when I hinted that I didn't have any Saturday night plans other than homework and asked if he had anything hot going on that night, he took the hint and asked me out for drinks. We talked and laughed for hours, closed down the brewery, and stood an hour in the cold at our cars talking before going home. I paid for our drinks, and when he protested, I told him he could pay for them on the next date, which we set for the next night, Sunday. After we ordered our drink Sunday, he pulled cleaning cloths for my glasses out of his pocket and said he brought them for me because I'd mentioned how annoying it is to smudge my glasses the night before. I knew then that this was going to be something lasting and good. The next few dates spread out over that week only confirmed it. Instead of seeing red flags and feeling like I needed to protect myself and keep my distance, all I saw were green flags. We opened up to each other and shared a lot of things that were really hard for us, but that we felt were potential deal breakers and wanted each other to know about. A month later, we're still spending every spare moment together. He's still wonderful. I spent the first 2 weeks being completely flabbergasted at every act of kindness or evidence that he'd been considerate of my feelings, desires, because I've been treated like shit by so many people I've met on online dating. It's still amazing to me how easy it feels to be around him. He's lovely in so many ways and has no problem with expressing, often, that he feels the same way about me. I never thought I'd be on here making this post so soon, but I always hoped, and that was what kept me going through all of the awful first dates, ghostings, lies, etc., just the basic bullshit you can expect when using the apps to date. I never thought I'd feel safe going this quickly with someone, and yet I'm meeting his friends this weekend and his family for Thanksgiving. It turns out what I always said was true: you only need to find that one person, and every shitty experience before that will have been worth it. It was. I will be upset if it ends, but always glad to have discovered someone with whom it was even possible to get this close and this far this quickly. And really, I don't expect to be back saying that it ended. We're both old enough to know what feels right when we find it and feel comfortable moving forward while still maintaining our individuality. Wish me luck, DOT, smiley face. Update: I made a post about 4 months ago now saying that I'd met someone via Bumble and we were really hitting it off. I got a mixed bag of responses, everything from people saying we're both crazy clingy and unhealthy to people saying this is exactly how their relationships that led to marriage started out, just feeling easy and right. A lot of people asked for an update, so I've just been hanging out seeing how this thing goes once it's past the notorious 3-month mark, and now I'm here to update. We're still going strong despite everything that's happened in the interim. He's fighting to keep his job. I met him in October right as a chronic health issue I had was getting worse, and I went through quite a lot with that. Hormonal treatment making me feel unstable, winter illnesses making it worse, etc., all of which culminated in surgery last week. My dog got very sick twice in that time. My car died and I went through the process of buying a new one. It's been an intensely stressful time in both of our lives, which has brought out our imperfections. I'm very glad to say we've seen those things in each other and are still together. If anything, it showed me who he really is in times of hardship, and I have completely fallen in love with the man I've come to know in these past 5 months. I am still so grateful to have found him. I can honestly say that not a damn thing changed at the 3-month mark. He's consistently loving, kind, respectful, and just a good person. I'm essentially living with him. I have maintained my apartment, but I haven't spent a single night there in the last 2 months, and when the employment situation stabilizes, we're going to find a house to rent together and officially move in together. Neither of us wanted to do that prior to the 6-month mark. We're at roughly 5 months now, and I feel very safe taking that step. Life stresses are a lot easier when you know someone has your back. I truly feel like I've found someone who aligns with my values and my lifestyle. I love that we're able to maintain ourselves as individuals while also being physically close. I wanted to share this to shore up all of the other people who feel very out of place with app dating, modern dating, and just tired of trying. I got crushed plenty before I found someone who things worked with. All of it has been worth it. If it ends tomorrow, I'll always be grateful I had it. But now, I'm quite certain it isn't going to end tomorrow or anytime soon. This is built to last. Update 2. I posted originally a few years ago saying I'd met someone on Bumble, and while it was too early to say it was forever, I was excited to be spending a lot of time with him and to get to know him. Responses were pretty mixed. Many outright stated that this was unhealthy, toxic, codependent, etc., while others said that when they met the one, it felt just like what I described. I made an update post 6 months later letting people know we were still together and going strong. Today I'm happy to make what is hopefully the final update. I married him, smiley face. We ended up renting out the brewery where we had our first date and inviting all of our friends and family to come eat and drink on us. It was a Halloween-ish wedding, so I wore black and he wore black navy blue. It was pretty small relatively, only about 40 to 45 people, and everybody had a great time, smiley face. Honestly, I still would have preferred to just elope, but something taking my partner's needs into account, etc., tongue sticking out. I had a good hearty laugh reading my last update thread written on March 10, 2020 stating, "It's been an intensely stressful time in both of our lives, which has brought out our imperfections. We had no fucking idea how much more stressful and awful and shitty the world was about to become with COVID. Both of our chronic illnesses are worse and life has been one non-stop stressful train wreck for the last 2.5 years, particularly because I work in healthcare. It ended up causing fights between us and we sought counseling via a Gottman certified couples therapist. It is amazing and so useful. I would highly recommend it to literally any couple no matter where you are in your relationship. We still go every 8 weeks and do a tune-up visit, but it's less and less necessary as time has passed. Whenever anyone asks what the biggest thing is that makes our relationship successful, I can honestly say that it's the willingness of both of us to work on ourselves in order to benefit our relationship. As long as we keep that, I believe we'll last a lifetime. Thank you to everybody who was supportive and those who offered constructive criticisms to me over the 5 years I've spent on this subreddit. I learned so much from the people here and fully intend to keep coming and helping others where I can." Stories number 9. My 26M girlfriend, 25F, thinks I slept with her sister, 22F. I was drunk and I'm not even sure if I did or didn't. These past few weeks I've been staying at my girlfriend's house. She lives in the same house as her family, but her parents own another house which they usually live in another city, and that's where they are now. So it's just her and her little sister there. Because I like to spend the nights with my girlfriend, I spent most nights at her house in her bedroom, and switch between that and my apartment. We like being together, and my apartment is small and dingy, so that's why it's usually at her place. We kind of had a fight a couple of weeks ago. She went out to a party with her friends and said she wouldn't be that long. I stayed up all night waiting for her but she didn't come back till next morning. Of course I was really upset and I shouldn't have assumed the worst, but I did, and we got into a fight. The same thing happened last night. She promised this time she'd just be a few hours. I know the parties she goes to have boys and girls there. I stayed up all night watching shit on TV, waiting for her. I started drinking one glass of whiskey after another, just out of boredom, waiting for her to come back. My mind was circling around thinking where she could be, why she could be taking so long. I feared she'd not come back till the next morning. Now this part is really fuzzy cause I was drunk as fuck by this point, and I could barely walk. I decided to call it quits and I staggered up to her bedroom to go to sleep. I usually sleep in my underwear, so I got down to my underwear, and I was surprised to find she was in bed, or at least I thought it was her. Normally I would have questioned what was going on, but in my drunken state I must have just assumed she got back early and went to bed without me realizing. I remember muttering to her, "I'm sorry I got so mad at you honey," and kissing her neck, and then cuddling her and going to sleep. I have no idea if anything else happened. I don't know if sex happened. I wish I could say it didn't, but I have no memory of the event. The next morning I had a painful as fuck headache. I remember waking up to my girlfriend's screams as she walked into the room in the morning. What the fuck is going on? I was still dreary and unaware of my surroundings. As I came to I realized I was lying in bed with her sister. We were both in our underwear cuddling, and her sister was facing me directly. Obviously it looked bad. My girlfriend was raging. I tried to explain, but the scene itself was incriminating enough. She told me to get out of the house, and she kicked her sister out as well. I have no idea where she went. I was in such an awful state and my headache was so bad, I barely had any idea what was going on. Painfully I went back to my home where I've been all day. I've been trying to call my girlfriend. I have not been able to reach her. She's not been responding to any calls. I tried to call her sister once as well to find out what the fuck happened, but no response. I honestly have no idea what happened. Did I cheat? Did I have sex with her? How does that even happen? I know for certain I kissed her neck, but I thought it was her. I didn't know it was her sister. Why the hell would she be in her bed? Why didn't she say or do anything? Why was she cuddling me in the morning? What can I do? How can I find out what happened or at least convince my girlfriend that I didn't cheat, even though I don't even know if I did or didn't? TLDR, was very drunk, crawled into bed with girlfriend's sister thinking it was her. Girlfriend saw us in morning, freaked out and thought we were cheating, threw me out of the house. Hasn't been responding to my calls since. What should I do? Relevant comments. Commenter 1. No matter how much explaining you do, she'll never get over this. Time to just move on and learn how to drink responsibly. Reply. You're telling me. I don't even normally drink that much. I guess I was just feeling abnormally depressed and I was trying to soothe my worries and fears. I don't know if I have an alcohol problem, but I would be happy to go to AA or any form of rehab if that helps. Edit. What the fuck is up with the downvotes? Update. Okay, it's taken me almost a week to muster up enough energy to write an update. I wasn't going to honestly, I didn't see the point. Things have been miserable and my life has been falling apart, but I'm slowly picking the pieces back up. A warning to everyone reading this. This story contains rape. Yes, rape. I am slowly accepting and living with the fact that I am now a victim of rape. I tried writing this but it was too confusing, so now I'm re-editing it. I'm going to use girlfriend and girlfriend's sister in all cases to refer to those people to avoid confusion. When I made the last post, I had lost contact with my girlfriend and she was not responding to my calls. I eventually did manage to reach through to girlfriend's sister. She was really upset. She said her sister, girlfriend, had thrown her out of the house, was threatening her, and not even accepting to talk to her. I talked to girlfriend's sister. I told her she has to tell me exactly what happened, and that it was very important because girlfriend was in danger. She was extremely upset, acting rashly, and could possibly hurt herself. Girlfriend's sister told me she will tell me the whole story, but she made me swear that I wouldn't tell girlfriend. I lied and said yes. From her story it sounds like she intentionally took advantage of me, knew I was drunk and thought she was her sister, and used it as an opportunity to have sex with me. Apparently we did have sex. After she told me that, some of the memories started faintly coming back to me, and I think I do very slightly remember we had sex now. What's worse is she said there was no protection and she was scared of pregnancy. She had a test later, she's not pregnant. I managed to eventually reach through to my girlfriend. I told her the entire story as I've said it here and in the last post, plus more detailed of course. I told her everything girlfriend's sister had told me. Girlfriend was disgusted this had happened and completely shocked, but she believed me, and she was very apologetic for accusing me of cheating. She told me that I had been raped and it's not something I can just brush off. I told her I didn't feel traumatized or anything by it, but agreed that what happened was rape. Girlfriend became even more furious at girlfriend's sister for raping her boyfriend. She told her to get out of the house, and she hasn't been back in the house since. Girlfriend has swore that she will never ever talk to her again, and from her fury, it sounds like she will live up to it. She hasn't spoken to her since. We've talked about what happened extensively, and I won't go into the details here, but she has been extremely supportive of me because I was taken advantage of and raped. She suggested I go to counseling services or something, but I insisted I don't need them. The whole situation was extremely strange and horrific. It feels weird to be a victim of rape. I don't feel much different. I don't feel traumatized. But I am still aware this thing happened to me where I had control of my body wrested from me. It's a strange feeling. TLDR, it turned out girlfriend's sister did in fact rape me and take advantage of me when I was drunk. I told girlfriend about this and she apologized for how badly she had treated me. She threw her sister out of her house and is on no speaking terms with her, saying she will never talk to her again. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. The same girlfriend who is going out to parties, saying she'll be home and not showing up until the next morning. Handling one situation well does not make a person awesome. Reply. Well, we talked about that. She won't go to parties anymore, and I will stop drinking. Stories number 10. I broke up with him because he flew to see his ex after he suggested a break. I did a lot of work on myself prior to getting into a relationship again. Thought I met the right one. He was emotionally healthy, he communicated well, we shared the same values, we laughed, played, he loved me and my son and was great with my family and friends. We were vulnerable, open, honest, passionate, and planned a future together. Then about 8 months in his mental health started waning due to stress. He would also start accusing me of infidelity despite me being open and honest and even fine with him looking through my phone. He seemed to recognize he needed to work on himself and wanted to take a break from us. I obliged but wanted some kind of boundaries for a productive break. He couldn't really give me a productive conversation around a healthy break. At the very least I wanted something like, how about let's minimize communication and touch base in a month, anything that made me feel we had a plan. I was getting frustrated. We spoke on the phone and he then opened up to tell me God said he needs to visit his ex across the country in another state, didn't really ask how I felt about it but made it seem this was something he needed to do. Not sure if he still needed closure or what. I couldn't understand. They broke up 3 years ago. To my knowledge, he tried to be transparent about it and reassure me it was for our relationship but I still felt betrayed. I'm open-minded and spiritual and I'm not a jealous person but this sounded bizarre and made no sense. I was fine with them speaking on the phone, but take a flight to see your ex. Once I heard he was at the airport I couldn't take it. I didn't trust it. I asked him if anything happened and he said they kissed and slept in the same bed at his hotel. She was taking care of her infant. They ended up fighting. Like really? God wanted you to do all this? It feels unfair that he wanted to go see his ex and sabotage a perfectly healthy relationship. All I needed was him to be solid and reliable, and I was horribly disappointed. He says he learned a lot and was able to rid of the guilt he needed to address with his ex. He wanted to speak in person when he returned and I couldn't do it. I was afraid I'd give in to his reasoning and that it would hurt too much to discuss in person. Currently upholding no contact. It sucks to feel forced to do this, but AIO. Update, I newly posted this and in just several minutes received an outpouring of support. I know you guys weren't in this relationship or know either of us, but I really appreciate the feedback here as someone who always second guesses herself. This is the first time I really trusted my gut to take action. So thank you. Stories number 11. Aita for saying I would terminate my pregnancy if the baby had a genetic condition, and now my husband is considering a divorce. A couple of weeks ago, I found out I'm pregnant. My husband and I had been talking about starting a family for a while, so this was supposed to be an exciting moment for us. However, during a conversation about prenatal testing, I told him that if we found out the baby had a severe genetic condition, such as Down syndrome, I would choose to terminate the pregnancy. I also shared my belief that it is extremely selfish to knowingly bring a child into the world with serious medical or developmental challenges. To me, it would be unfair to the child, to myself, and to my husband. Raising a child with severe disabilities is an enormous lifelong commitment, one that affects every aspect of a family's life, and I don't believe it is responsible to willingly choose that path when there is an option to prevent it. I also said that either raising a child like that or having an hereditary condition and choose to be pregnant, instead of adopting, for example, is extremely selfish as well. My husband was horrified. He said he never realized I felt this way and that he couldn't believe I would even consider terminating a pregnancy just because the child wouldn't be perfect. He accused me of being cold, pro-eugenist and lacking empathy, saying that every child deserves love regardless of their challenges. He also strongly disagreed with my opinion that people with hereditary conditions should think twice before having children, calling it an extreme and disturbing mindset. Since then, things between us have been tense, and now he says he is seriously considering divorce. He told me that we have completely different values when it comes to family and that he doesn't think he can stay married to someone who sees things this way. I was shocked that he would take it this far, but he says he doesn't want to raise children with someone who believes in selective reproduction. I never expected this conversation to lead to such a massive rift in our marriage. I don't see my stance as cruel, just practical and responsible. Aita for being honest about my beliefs, even though they are making my husband want to leave me. TLDR, I recently found out I'm pregnant and told my husband that I would terminate if prenatal testing showed the baby had a severe genetic condition. I believe it's selfish to knowingly bring a child into the world who will suffer. My husband was horrified, says we have different values, and is now considering divorce. Aita. Stories number 12. No, I don't want the good stuff. Now everyone knows. After reading some of the medical stories, I realized I do have one that fits this sub. Mom dealt the traumatizing blow, but my situation provided the setup. 5 years ago, I had to have pretty major surgery. The hospital where it was done was a teaching hospital, so there were a lot of residents in and out saying stuff like, the nurses will give you the good stuff if you need it. Recovery didn't feel great, but I was adamant from minute one that apart from whatever was in the anesthesia, I refused to take opioids. Thankfully, the nurses were very understanding and gave me alternating doses of hospital-grade Tylenol and Motrin worked wonders, providing this info in case anyone needs it in the future. The first morning after surgery, one of the residents doing rounds said, "Wow, you made it through the night without the good stuff. I'm impressed." Mom told me later that she pulled him aside afterwards and told him, the reason she refuses to take the good stuff is because 2 of her childhood best friends died from opioid overdoses. Apparently the poor man was horrified and apologized profusely. For the rest of my stay, the good stuff wasn't mentioned once. Stories number 13. Aita for deserting GF on trip I gifted her. My long-distance GF happened to be here while a band she loves played 4 hours away, so I surprised her with a trip to see them. I got train tickets and hotel, ensuring we stayed in the best part of town and it was easy to get around. I told her a month ahead so we would have time to plan. I told her our schedule for arrival day the day of the show with times and places. The night before she brings up the plan. I repeat it to her. She immediately challenges it. That's not a plan. What trains are we taking? I knew we had many options and would just check Google on arrival. Nevertheless, she proceeds to look up all the things I had already researched, questioning my times because wrong sources say something else, and ruin the surprise that there is a second band. We had 4 hours from arrival to the venue opens. My plan was to drop off things at the hotel, go to venue area, eat, see show. She says she will need 1 hour to prepare at the hotel. I accept. She says she will be wearing a revealing outfit and doesn't want to be wearing it everywhere. When we arrive in the city, I step aside to look at Google, but she doesn't even let me look before she starts giving instructions on where to go. She's in a busy crowd talking in a low voice, so I can't make out what she's saying. I tell her to speak up. She says some track numbers. I go where there's a sign with the numbers, but it's wrong. She blames me for misunderstanding. We find a train and get to our station. She's still giving instructions I can't hear. I see an exit with a street name that I know is close to the hotel, and take it. She annoyedly says, "Why did you take this? It wasn't the right 1 inch." I'm like, how is it wrong? It's the right street. We'd be walking the same distance underground. She continues pointing out how other exits were more right as we walk past them. We get to the hotel room and sit down to cool off. I take off my pants, expecting her to start preparing soon, but let her have a moment to chill. After 45 minutes she's shown no initiative. I ask if she's starting soon. No, she wants to get food. I ask why didn't she say this instead of just sitting here. She blames me for taking off my pants, like I couldn't simply put them on again. I say I thought we'd agreed to eat by the venue. According to her, not wanting to wear the outfit everywhere implied we wouldn't. So wearing the outfit on the way to the venue is fine, but making a stop on the way isn't. I just had enough. I'd put together this sweet gift for her, I'd made sure we had time to make a plan and I've been flexible to accommodate her, and all I hear is complaining. I got my ticket, gave her the key, and said that she can do things her way and left. I walked around for a bit. I knew I was being dramatic and didn't want this situation. She calls me, but I don't pick up. After receiving some threatening texts from her, I went to the venue by myself. Stories number 14. Aita for refusing to give a real apology to my SIL after she made my life miserable on a trip. I, 40M, have a history of health problems. I have to eat before 9 p.m. or I get nauseous and I also need to avoid certain foods. I had a broken leg and was on crutches when I met my SIL, so I wasn't in the best condition at all. She's from a big city, and she repeatedly told me I should see it with her. She invited me to see an exhibition, but instead of booking somewhere close to it, she chose a place far away because it was cheaper. If she'd let me know in advance, I could have saved up for a more convenient place, but she knew better because she's a native and I'm from a small town. I trusted her because she had a car and led me to believe we'd be driving to the exhibit and back. We were supposed to go to the city Saturday, see the exhibition, get an early night and head for home after lunch on Sunday. So I didn't even need to ask for a day off. I was on probation, no holidays or sick leave allowed unless there was good reason. A trip out of town on a whim wasn't good reason. The trip was miserable. Instead of driving, we had to use buses and trains, and we walked a lot in the pouring rain. My leg hurt from the cold and the wet and I didn't get a chance to rest. She then decided the exhibition we were supposed to see was too expensive, and we ended up doing something else. In fact, lots of other things, that mainly involved being dragged from one rainy street to another. I wanted to get out of the weather and paid for an exhibition that was the same price as the one she refused to go to. She still claims that she paid the inflated price at my insistence, but there was no seating and it was a crowded, uncomfortable space. I was upset because we queued ages too, just to get out of the rain. She later claimed to everyone that she only went to the exhibit because I insisted and that it was terrible. We didn't get to eat until after 10 p.m. in some fancy restaurant that she eventually decided on, but by then I couldn't manage more than 2 to 3 bites because I needed to eat on time to avoid getting sick. I couldn't even take pain medication because I hadn't eaten, so I'm sure you can imagine how uncomfortable I was that night. I didn't sleep a wink and we had to check out early next morning. The next day, I was exhausted and in pain. She dragged me from one place to another, and I honestly don't even remember what we did. I begged to go home around 5 p.m. because I had to work the next day, but she kept insisting that there was more to show me. I can't even remember what I saw, I was so stressed and exhausted, so what was the point in that? We didn't get back to my hometown until 11 p.m., and then she went shopping while I was stuck waiting for her. I couldn't get a taxi, it was too late at night and I didn't even know where we were. She was the one with the car and my broken leg and fatigue made me feel very vulnerable. When we finally got to my house at midnight, I had to be up at 5 a.m. for work. She smugly said, "I'm glad I'm unemployed, I can sleep all day tomorrow." I didn't speak, but I wanted to lose it. I didn't speak to her for weeks after that. My brother reached out, saying she was upset that I didn't thank her for a great trip and that I should apologize and show some gratitude. I didn't. He started talking about me to my parents while I was not there and my mother shut that down. She pointed out that I didn't get to see the exhibition we went for, that I had to go into work whilst sleep-deprived, exhausted and sick or else risk losing my job. As I said, I was on probation and hadn't booked any recovery time off as I hadn't expected to need it, and that she felt I was the one who deserved the apology. He and Sal went NC with me and my parents after that. I was the golden child and they were my enablers. After years of NC, they reached out when they had nowhere to go and needed my parents' support. They retired and bent over backwards for my brother and Sil. At Christmas, she came to visit my parents at their house with my brother. I always spend Christmas with my parents, so I was there, and she made more jabs at me while we were alone. I ignored them, using my deaf ear as an excuse to not hear anything she said too quietly, but otherwise kept civil. She was civil when she didn't have me alone. After they left, she got my brother to text me, calling me a liar and again demanding an apology for the stuff that went on in the city, more than 5 years ago, now. I sent him a bland, emotionally absent apology saying I was sorry she was upset by my needs. He hasn't replied since. I feel like I'm being manipulated and expected to apologize for something that was completely her fault, but she's holding my brother's and parents' happiness over my head. I'm not sure if I'm overreacting or if I could handle things better. Aita. Stories number 15. Someone stole from me, 24F, how do I deal with the suspects? Brother, 27M, best friend, 24M, GF, 23F, housemate, 28M, and housemates GF, 21F. My grandfather recently passed away, and he left me and my brother a watch and a tin of cash each. We received about £750 each, and the watches are purely sentimental value. I was given the tin with the money on the Saturday afternoon, and was too busy to go to the bank to deposit it, and banks are closed Sunday. Between Saturday afternoon, 14th, and Monday morning, 16th, the cash and the tin were stolen. The tin was put in my bottom drawer on Saturday afternoon, and was not there Monday morning. The issue is that there were a large number of people who had the opportunity to take that money, and I don't know who did it. Seeing as I don't want to drag everybody onto the Jeremy Kyle show, I'm turning to Reddit for suggestions. How do I figure out who took this money? If I have to go to the police, I will, but I would really rather not, seeing as I have no evidence. The suspects are as follows. My brother, Michael, 27. He was at my house on a Saturday afternoon, as we both received our inheritances. We hung out for a bit talking about my granddad. He only had 5 minutes in my bedroom alone, but I can't remember if I saw the tin after he left. I was more interested in the watch, and it had been a long day. I don't think it'd be him, because he got his own money, but he does need money a lot more than me, as his girlfriend is pregnant. My best friend, Daniel, 24. He came over Sunday, and had plenty of opportunity throughout the day. I told him about the money, but didn't tell him it was in my room. Daniel is wealthy as hell, and my £750 would be petty cash to him. I can't see why he would steal from me, but he would have had the best opportunity. My girlfriend, Carrie, 23. She stayed over Saturday night, and was super quick to leave Sunday morning. She's been acting a bit off at the moment, but she doesn't really get on with my housemate. I don't think she'd steal from me. I wouldn't be with her if I did. But we've only been seeing each other for a couple of months. My housemate, Kane, 28. He wasn't in the house until Sunday evening, and his girlfriend was with him, and they both vouch for each other. Kane's a bit weird, and has poor boundaries, especially with Carrie, but he's generally pretty honest. If I didn't think he was a safe person to be around, I wouldn't be living with him. Kane's girlfriend, Alessa, 21. I think it's her. I don't know her at all, but she really dislikes me and Carrie. But Kane swears up and down that he and Alessa were in each other's sight the whole time, and that she isn't a thief. Alessa is also super bad with money, so if she had an extra £750 lying around, she would have had her nails done, and new clothing and things to show for it, which makes me think she might not have stolen it. Also, I have no idea how she would have known about the money, or found it. I've spoken to each of the suspects. Michael and Daniel are outraged on my behalf, but have distanced themselves. Carrie is super worried that I think it was her, and is pointing the finger at Kane and Alessa. Kane seems really confused by everything, and won't comment, and Alessa has accused everybody except herself and Kane. She's even suggested that there was no money, and I'm trying to cause drama. Since that Monday, it's been awful. Carrie doesn't want to see me, Daniel has been avoiding me, and Alessa has been really in my face and passive-aggressive about accusing her. Michael told me that it hurt him really badly to be accused of stealing from me. Are there any ideas or suggestions on how to figure this out before I get the police involved? And is there any point in involving the police? TLDR, someone stole £750. Is there a way to figure out who without going to the police? Would the police even be much use in this scenario? Relevant comments. Commenter 1. So who on the list actually knew where you had the money hidden? Reply. I'm not 100% sure. Michael was there when I put the money away. Carrie knows that's where I stash things for safekeeping. Just in general, Daniel also knows my habit of using bottom drawers as a kind of deal with this later drawer, since we've been friends forever. I don't think Kane knows. He knew I had inherited some money from my granddad, because me and Carrie were talking about my plans for the money, but he didn't know where it was. Alessa wouldn't know, unless Kane told her. So, Michael, Carrie and Daniel definitely knew. Kane might. Alessa most likely didn't. Commenter 2. So your main suspects are Alessa and Carrie. Wait until you are alone with Alessa Kane and tell them that you decided to give whoever it was a chance at redemption. If you find 750 anonymously sent to your account within 2 weeks, you will consider everyone innocent and not notify the police. Then, wait until you are alone with Carrie. Tell her you decided to give whoever it was a chance at redemption. If you find 750 in a plain envelope in your mail within 2 weeks, you will consider everyone innocent and not notify the police. Commenter 3. Oh, this is some Game of Thrones shit, I love it. Update. First off, thank you for the suggestions. I went with the idea you Lampshade00 offered. I took each person aside and told them that I was going to go to the police if the money wasn't returned. I told each person to put the money in a different spot. About £100 was returned to the spot I told Kane to use. Kane took me aside and asked me not to be too harsh on Alessa, as she is only young. I played along and agreed. Later, I sent Alessa a text and asked her if she knew that Kane was pinning the theft on her. She hit the roof. She came to the house and flipped out at Kane. Apparently, he told her that he'd seen Carrie taking it, and that everybody else was ganging up and blaming her. Kane apparently enjoys being the puppet master. I could fill a book with the lies he's been telling the lot of us. His cloud cuckoo lander behavior is more or less an act. The money was just sitting in his sock drawer. Alessa tore his room apart until she found the money, which she gave back to me. Kane just likes to see people fight. I'm moving out of Kane's place, and in with Daniel. Alessa has dumped Kane. I have my money back. Daniel was never that fazed, so he's forgiven me. Michael is hurt, and Carrie is just relieved that I didn't really think it was her. Probably going to spend this money on fun stuff to do with Daniel, Carrie and Michael to smooth over the justifiably hurt feelings incurred. TLDR, Kane stole the money to mess with people. I've got my money back. Thanks again. Stories number 16. I think my BF is cheating on me with our friend. My BF and I have a mutual friend from school who basically reintroduced us after several years. Our friend obviously has a crush on my BF, and according to my BF, she told him she'd like to have sex with him sometime. Fast forward, BF and I started dating. BF told my friend, she lashed out and said she was gonna keep her distance from us now. Later on, BF called me and told me to be checking in on her often because she's lonely. They've been in contact and we all send each other streaks on Snapchat. But this girl shares really provocative stuff with us, and when I got my BF's phone, I saw he's been saving a bunch of them. Today is Val's Day. BF suddenly said he's visiting our hometown after work because his dad called for him. Mind you, this is where BF, friend and I lived when we're schooling together. BF and I are living elsewhere now, but friend is in this same town. For over 2 hours now, I call BF and it goes straight to voicemail. One time he picked the call and suddenly turned it off and that's been it. I thought of calling our friend, and hers was also going straight to voicemail. He asked me to be his Val last night over phone, got me nothing for Vals, and I have a strong intuition that he's somewhere with another girl, if not a friend. Am I overreacting? Edit 1, thank you for the responses. I seriously thought I was overthinking it, but turns out it's a glaring sign. I'll call him first thing in the morning and ask about his whereabouts. He could still lie, but I just hope I keep my cool throughout. If you have any ideas on how to confront him about it, do let me know, but I'll update the post afterwards. Top comments. Can OOP get in touch with her BF's family to find out if he is with his dad? Reply, I don't have his family's contact. It's been only a month since we started dating. Commenter 1, your very first Valentine's Day a month in should be romantic, with him still geeking out for you. It's def shady. Reply, you get me. He got a 300% bonus at work just 2 days ago, and I graduated from university this same week. I was hoping for something memorable, cause we both won this week. And now this is how it goes. I just want that geeky love. Someone who's excited about me. It's not too much, right? Loudly crying face. Commenter 2, send him a message, how's your date with GF going? Yes, I just figured it out, a friend sent a photo. Don't either of you bother contacting me again, send it during dinner. Or call her and say you need to talk to him and ask her to hand him her phone, because you know they are together. Update us. Update. It's been a hell of a weekend. I couldn't sleep, and was itching to find out what truly happened with my boyfriend on Valentine's night. First thing Saturday morning, I called my BF and he said he was sleeping, that's why he couldn't pick my calls. When I mentioned the time where he actually picked up and immediately turned it off, he was in total denial and said he didn't remember any such thing. He then told me he could share his live location with me from now on, which I declined cause it was painting me as this crazy, jealous GF. I got off the call and dug up old texts from my phone, and I found our friend's mother's contact there. I called her, asking to check in on my friend. She said my friend had left home the night before to an all-night party with her friends. But she said one of my male friends came to pick her up. It was my boyfriend. I ended the call and checked my Snapchat to check if my BF had come online so we could talk, and I saw that our friend had updated her private story. I clicked it, and in the video, she was having pillow talk with a guy I sharply recognize as my BF. After seeing and hearing all this, I had my answer. I was right. I spent the rest of the day indoors rethinking the whole relationship. They were in contact before I returned to the picture. Why drag me into this? Why get me involved and then pull this shtick? A part of me is glad this happened earlier, cause he was below my standards, but I loved him. Today, I went to visit my cousin, and she took me to the beach. So that is my update. They're both blocked, and I'll be taking a break to focus on my job and myself. Thank you all for the support and DMS giving me suggestions. Top comments. Commenter 1, they are terrible and you can do better. I'm sorry. It really blows when someone doesn't protect the love you give. And unfortunately both of them did this to you. Please update me. I hope they really get their comeuppance. Commenter 2, they both suck and you will be better off without them in your life. I know you lived him but he didn't love you so don't let him or her weasel their way back into your life. Good luck to you. Stories number 17. Am I, M40, being unreasonable asking my wife, F35, to move for 2 years for life-changing money? Am I being unreasonable asking my wife to move for 2 years for life-changing money? We've been married for 7 years, and my wife is a som to our 2 kids under 5. We live comfortably in a desirable BC city, renting out our basement suite to help make it work. All my immediate family is within 90 minutes, and her widowed mom lives in the same city. I recently took a 20% pay raise to join a smaller company that values me highly. They're expanding to Prince George and want someone there full-time to build the business. They're offering free housing for 6+ months, massive salary increase, 2-3x my current pay, career growth that secures our future. With 2 years of this, we could buy a home almost mortgage-free when we return to the Okanagan, ensuring my wife can stay home with the kids long-term, her biggest priority. But she refuses to move, even for a short time. She's worried about safety, losing family support, and not having friends. I offered to fly her mom up every 4 to 6 weeks, but she still says no. I see 2 years as a short-term sacrifice for lifelong security. She sees it as impossible. Am I being unreasonable? Have you been in a similar situation? How did you make it work? Edit. Thank you to everyone who shared your thoughts and advice. It was helpful to have everyone share their perspective. I don't have time to respond to everyone but am in the process of reading all the responses. We are going to continue to work this out and find a solution that works for our family. Stories number 18. Upset at my wife because she told our 8-year-old autistic kid the reality of dying. My autistic son who is 8 and is highly functioning came into our bedroom last night saying he wanted to go to Dubai, must have seen something cool on YT, lol. The dialogue changed to him asking my wife, his mother, about dying. Instead of just telling him not to worry about it she gave in and talked about heaven and blah blah blah. It tore my fucking heart out that the wife told him there is an end at such a young age instead of letting him come to the truth eventually. He was bawling his eyes out and was saying he didn't want to die. None of us do. Am I overreacting for being very upset with my wife? Update, overwhelming majority says I'm overacting. Thanks for all the input so far. I think it just hurt me to see him hurt at the realization. Stories number 19. Aita for dumping my girlfriend because of her kid. So, I, 29M, started seeing this girl, Julia, 25F, about a month ago. Things were going really well, we had great chemistry, and I was enjoying getting to know her. I had no real complaints, she seemed fun, cool, and like someone I could seriously date. Few days ago, I had just finished a long day at work, and I told her I'd pick her up and take her to this nice restaurant I'd been wanting to try. I was excited because I thought it would be a fun night. Then she replied, I can't tonight, my parents have plans, and I need to take care of my kid. At first, I was taken aback. I honestly thought I misheard her. Like, did she just say, kid? I thought maybe she was talking about a younger sibling or something, but when I asked, she casually confirmed that she has a 7-month-old baby. Now, I'm not someone who judges single mothers or anything like that, but this was the first time I was hearing about it. We had been seeing each other for a few weeks and I had no idea she had a baby, and she had never mentioned it before. The way she said it so casually made it feel like I was the one who was supposed to just accept it, like it was no big deal. It's true I wouldn't have continued this relationship if I had known about her kid from the start. That I was stunned. She told me her parents were handling the baby most of the time, but still, it was a lot to take in. That I just told her okay and cut the call. I didn't reach out to her the day after our conversation, and she didn't contact me either, probably busy with her kid. 2 days later, she messaged me, but I didn't reply because I didn't know how to handle it. That night, she called and asked if we should still go to the restaurant the next day. That's when I realized I didn't want to continue seeing her. I told her I didn't know she had a child and that I didn't want to be a step-parent, so it was best to end things. She calmly said, okay, I understand, and we ended the call. The next morning, I woke up to banging on my door. She was sobbing, telling me she loved me and begging me to meet her kid. She said I'd fall in love with the baby and wouldn't leave. I told her if I had known about the kid, I wouldn't have started dating her. She cried harder, and I told her I had to go to work, which was true. At work, I got an anonymous call with slurs. I'm not sure if it was her or someone else, but I'm suspicious. When I got home, neighbors told me she was crying loudly at my door and she banged on some of their doors too and introduced herself as my girlfriend, so they didn't take any action. Most were supportive, but one single mother, Georgia, gave me a dirty look and said I shouldn't have given her hope if I was just going to leave. Honestly, I'm still processing the whole situation. I never intended to be a step-parent, and I felt like she should have told me sooner. I'm starting to feel like I'm being blamed for something that wasn't my fault. Aita for ending the relationship and not being ready to take on the responsibility of dating a single mom. Stories number 20. Aita for asking my friend to give back a gift I gave her after she openly expressed that she would be getting rid of it. Not the a-hole. I, 27F, have been friends with this girl, we'll call her Mary, 28F, since high school. Recently I was back in our hometown and she invited me to her birthday brunch to celebrate her 28th b-day. One day on my way home I happened to stumble across an estate sale where I found a set of really nice, crystal champagne glasses that were in really good condition and cheaper than their worth. Mary lives a high-quality fancy lifestyle, so I thought they would be perfect for her, especially because they were within my budget. At the time I had been recovering from student loans and just put down a deposit on my first apartment in the city. Fast forward to the brunch, we had a really good time and I got to catch up with Mary and other friends from high school. Mary was eager to open the presents, and when she got to mine, she seemed to enjoy them, asking me where I got them since there was no label. I explained that I didn't know the brand, but the person running the estate sale had assured me that they were authentic and had been a wedding gift to the previous owners. At the mention of the estate sale, Mary became visibly disgusted. Although she didn't say anything to my face, she was very passive-aggressive towards me for the rest of the afternoon. I overheard her whispering to some of the other guests about how I had the audacity to give her a used item and that she would be discarding them later. After the event was over, I approached her privately, not wanting to make a scene, and asked that if she wasn't going to use the glasses, if she could give them back as I would put them to good use and know their quality. She flipped out and told me it was extremely rude to ask for them back and it was not my business what she did with them. My family is understanding and thinks that I did nothing wrong, but some mutual friends also at the event think otherwise. So, am I the a-hole? Just finished. Stories number 21. Aita for telling my friend I won't force my husband into a baby like she did. My friend is currently going through IVF because her husband travels for work and, in her words, was never home to seal the deal. She literally goes to the transfers and every appointment alone. If she thinks she's having symptoms of it working, he basically tells her it's all she talks about, and just weird comments like he's not excited for it to work. She was super bummed the first attempt didn't work and just did a second. The weekend before we went out and her husband stated he wanted to get a vasectomy soon. That comment really surprised me as they didn't freeze more than a few attempts of IUI, but she's adamant if IUI doesn't work she's moving on to IVF before June. A week or so later her and I chatted about the convo and I said something along the lines that his comment surprised me and is kinda crappy while she's trying everything to conceive, then also about his other comments she's shared he just didn't seem as invested and hopeful, etc. She did give her husband an ultimatum: baby or divorce. My husband is afraid to start a family, and she told me to give him an ultimatum. I kept saying no and she kept saying it, and then I said no because my child deserves a father who completely wanted them and won't resent me for making him be a father. We are starting preconception process, SUPs, blood work, eating so much better, not drinking, convos, etc., so I do hope it'll happen soon but refuse to force him into it. She didn't act mad or anything, but she keeps telling me to threaten divorce or trick him, and I just refuse to do that. She asks my opinion on their situation often, whereas I don't ask for advice, just sometimes I vent. But Aita Reddit, I should add, she didn't want children for the 7 years they dated or first year of marriage and then changed her mind. Whereas I've never said that, as well as my husband and I agreed on having a child long before marriage. Stories number 22. Neighbor's CCTV camera pointing into underage girl's bedroom. So recently my neighbor has installed a CCTV camera on top of his garage that is able to swivel turn to look into my bedroom. For context, I'm a 17Y female. I know this as my mom went to chap his door and ask him about the camera placement, and he admitted the camera is able to look into my bedroom, but he says, quote, he isn't going to do that. This specific man has a previous record of DV or some form of domestic abuse against his ex-wife girlfriend that happened late 2024, and obviously isn't known to be the kindest to women, as I heard it all through my bedroom wall. I also have other things I heard one summer out the garden as he had a conversation with his friend's family where he admitted that men have a primal attraction to younger women and called himself a hunter-gatherer, which I think says it all. I have a photo of the camera's position, but I'm unable to attach on this thread here, but if anyone wants it for reference, I'm happy to send it for a second opinion. Stories number 23. Aita for telling my heartbroken buddy that women are running from his filthy habits. My pal has weird luck. Ladies. Women initially like him, then they get weird and run away over something vague. A while ago, my housing fell through. Pal invited me to live in his rec room. I only saw his house while he had a GF. Now the house was gross. He lived like a neglected 10 years old. No life skills. Examples at the end. I figured he was depressed over his last GF. Did him a solid and cleaned the house. He didn't notice. House was filthy in a WK. I stick to the clean rec room and roughed it out. If I ask about a mess, there's shame, defensiveness, and passive aggression before he'll clean it. He's sensitive to criticism, trying not to resent me. I understand why women ran. I don't bring it up. Lately, he's sad that nobody wants him. I let him vent before I asked, do you want me to listen? Or give feedback? He says feedback and adds, if there is anything I can change I want to know. So I tell him, you have qualities that attract people, but your household hygiene sabotages you. I didn't mention his inability to take criticism. He didn't fully argue me but floundered all kinds of patronizing and defensive retorts. You don't know that. Well, you see, not everyone has the same standards as you. What about that time you did this, that, etc.? Whatever. I don't want to talk about it. Now, I know his pattern is to fuss when he feels criticized and then be more sensible later on. It is likely he'll come back around and say, maybe you are right, which is what I counted on. However, he is even more passive-aggressive than usual. He is openly crying all over the house, which I did not anticipate. I can see why his exes were all so vague in their reasons for leaving. Now, here's my shtick. I knew I was rolling the dice by giving him a real answer and not pity. Maybe, the right thing to do really was to quietly wait for an exit and then bolt out the door with a really vague reason. Examples of bad household hygiene. Uses Febreze to clean. Carries Doritos in his bare hands, lets them fall to the floor, steps on them, and kicks the crumbs through the house as he walks around. Dorito crumbs get stuck in everything like sand. Leaves dog poo all over the patio so that the dog steps in it and bring it inside. Uses a year-old sponge to wipe dishes. Dishes silverware are coated food residue and mouse waste from mice eating off plates. Fridge is full jars, preserves, heat made in 2020. He wipes his sweat onto the curtains, blankets, cushions. They smell like ammonia. Dog smells so bad that I gag. He won't change her diet, bathe her. Dog sleeps on his bed. His crazy date story about a lady who asked to come over on their 4th date and then left his BDRM declaring, I can't do this. Makes sense. Food on his hands. Wipe it on walls, furniture. There's globs all over the kitchen. The couch has a brown smudge over the arm. Spill something. Throw a pillow, blanket, towel over it and leave it. Update 1, because the 3,000 word limit cut this info out. The dog is no longer with us. It passed away of a very old age after New Year's. He cherished that dog, in fact, in my opinion, relied too much on the dog to replace human connections. And this made for some strange logic in his pet responsibilities. Such as the immovable belief that the dog was his caregiver. I think this also hurt his chances in relationships. Dog went to a vet every month but could not be saved from old age. My buddy has been extra fragile since, and that fragility lead up to me dropping a truth bomb on him. The mice have been addressed, mostly. An exterminator comes out every 3 months, however, my pal has not changed his habits to improve the effectiveness of pest control treatment. Still, the mice are far fewer and none of them are in areas of the house that I frequent anymore. They seem to come in through the front door and stay in the other side of the house where he keeps his depression nest, as someone aptly described it. I live in the back with the kitchen. My pal believed that, if he got a cat, he would not have to clean to prevent mice cause the cat would deter the mice. He did not want to hear that he would have to clean up after a cat. The cat does not like him cause he won't leave it alone. We are in our 30s. I have a partner in another town and we are waiting for several things, outside our control, to settle to move in together. It was not my intention to stay here permanently. Again, my friend is being very generous with his space. My buddy, outside the home, is a good-looking dude with lots of book smarts and a gentle demeanor. He is very supportive and generous with the large community and people often go to him for advice in managing events and organizing. He has no problem at all finding dates. He often has multiple dates a week. Ladies really dig him, at first. Inside the house, however, things fall apart. Stories number 24. My child has become a child again. I don't think I can do this again. My 50M child, 24NB, has become a child again. I don't know what to do and I'm not sure I can do this anymore. As a child, they were incredibly dependent on me and their mom, as my ex-wife, 53F, coddled, isolated, and sheltered them from the world. This is because my child is autistic and my ex was convinced this was the best way to raise them. Obviously, we couldn't protect them from everything as they were bullied and taken advantage of regularly, even by children younger than them. It all came to a head in middle school when my ex and I divorced. It was messy and traumatic for our child, as they became suicidal and depressed. They barely attended school and yet somehow, they ended up getting into high school. I homeschooled them during middle school as best as I could before sending them to a small private school so they weren't at home all the time and would hopefully make some friends. Obviously, this didn't work out and they went through high school and most of college completely friendless. It bothered them, but they also were unable to connect with people their age. My child mainly lives with me, as my ex had a relapse in anger management and I figured it would be best. Before this, my child has no interest in having a job because they were utterly terrified of being left alone at work and wanted something more remote and flexible. I managed to help them land a part-time job while they finished up school and learned how to do the chores my ex insisted they never learned. Last month, a family member on my ex's side of the family had a medical emergency and my child went to stay with their mom to be closer to the hospital they were at and planned to come home once they were discharged. They got home last week after being at their mom's house for almost a month. They don't open up anymore. I found out they dropped all their classes this semester and even had basically quit going to work. All they do is lay in bed, watching Bluey. I ask if they want to do anything and they say they're exhausted, but how can they be exhausted if all they do is rest? I can't go back to having a lazy, unmotivated person in my house. I can't go back to financially supporting them. I can't go back to them not opening up when clearly something happened. I know this family member didn't die, so what happened? I'm so lost, tired, and confused. I've tried being nice and when I finally snapped, they screamed, kicked me, and cussed me out just like the tantrums they threw as a child. I can't do this anymore. Tears of therapy and supporting them and it was for nothing. 1 month ruined every ounce of progress made to make my child a functioning adult and now I'm back to having to budget and pray I can make ends meet every month. If they don't get their act together, they're going back with mom. She can deal with them this time. Not me. Stories number 25. Growing up in a polygamous home, the truth I never admitted. My family is very traditional. We are Fulani people from West Africa, and my dad has 2 wives, my mom is his second. In my culture, this is really common. And honestly, the wives hate each other. The same goes for my mom and stepmom. My mom lives in Africa, while I live in the US with my dad and stepfamily. It's not like a Cinderella story where they're always bad, actually, they're good most of the time. But every time a problem comes up, it's always pointed out that I'm a step-sibling. My stepmom doesn't really treat me as part of the family. In my Fulani household, it's really common for older siblings to ask the younger ones to do things for them. It's normal, and the younger ones can't refuse. But every time my stepsisters ask me to do something, my stepmom will ask me for forgiveness as if I was wronged, telling me to forgive her and her family. She only does this to me. When I was between 13 and 15, she used to tell me things outright, like how I was a spy sent by my mother, that I didn't see my step-siblings as my family, and that I wanted to steal my sisters away from her son. She even accused me of trying to compete with her son at school, just because I was doing better than him. She and my step-siblings would curse at me and make up things about me. One time, she didn't just curse me, she cursed my mom too. That was when I finally got mad. But after everything, she suddenly started apologizing. Not because she actually meant it, but because she believes that if she doesn't apologize, God will punish her. In Islam, when someone apologizes, you're supposed to forgive them, but I didn't forgive her. That made her even more upset. She escalated things, called my stepsiblings into the room, and one of my stepsisters physically beat me. Stories number 26. Aita for walking out of yoga class after the instructor hit on my daughter and kissed her. Advice needed. My mom has been begging me to join her yoga class, so I agreed and brought my daughter, 19F, along. From the moment we walked in, the instructor, let's call him Chad, mid-40s, thinks he's some sort of spiritual guru, zeroed in on my daughter. He kept complimenting her energy and asking her deep, awkward questions about her soul connection. My deaf grandmother, 85F, saw what was happening and signed to me that she thought he was cute. Class starts, and my grandma, who has no idea what's going on, starts doing her own random stretches in the back. Meanwhile, Chad keeps adjusting my daughter more than necessary, hands lingering way too long on her waist, whispering things like, relax, feel the flow. She looked super uncomfortable, but he didn't seem to notice. Then, after the class ends, as everyone is packing up, Chad grabs my daughter by the shoulders and leans in for what I can only describe as a full-on kiss on the cheek. My daughter was frozen, absolutely stunned, and I lost it. I rushed over, grabbed her, and told Chad he needed to back off. He just stood there smirking, acting like he'd done nothing wrong. I stormed out with my daughter and told my mom that we were never coming back to that studio. Now my mom is furious at me, saying I'm being too dramatic, and my grandma keeps signing, he had good energy, you should have let it go. Aita for pulling my daughter out. Because I feel like this went way beyond just a yoga class. Stories number 27. Aita for asking my friends to stop scheduling workplace events at the restaurant I work at. Not the a-hole. Me, 20F, and Camilla, 23F, work at the same place. We have been acquaintances for a long time but only got closer when I got hired in the start of last year. She is essentially my boss's assistant. Besides working here, in November I took a part-time job in a restaurant where I work Friday nights, Saturdays, Sundays and holidays. My boss, 52M I think, likes to host dinners for our whole office at least once a month or when we finish a really big project. Usually I can't make it so I don't pay a lot of attention to discussions about it. At the start of January, I realized that the dinner for the opening of the year was going to take place at the restaurant I work at. I talked with Camilla. She said she didn't realize but that it couldn't be changed since the reservations were already made. That dinner was awkward for me since my coworkers kept asking me to sit and eat with them and were kind of giving me weird looks. I think it was pity tbh. They left a huge tip which was both cool and a bit embarrassing. Afterwards everyone started treating me differently and my supervisor even pulled me aside to ask if everything was alright. LOL, they had good intentions but it was genuinely annoying for me especially since I don't talk much about my personal life at work. The February dinner was set for the restaurant I worked at again. I asked Camilla about it and she just said that the boss really liked the place and there was nothing she could do. I decided to trade with one of the other workers in the restaurant that works in the back, he was previously a waiter, to try to avoid the awkwardness. I was not even 1 hour into my shift when the owner came in and informed me that I had to trade again because table 4, the one with coworkers, asked for me. When I switched, Camilla made a joke about me hiding from them and everything was awkward again. After that, I sent a text to Camilla asking if she would please stop scheduling the dinners here. She said that she couldn't and we had an argument. I said that she was being a bad friend and she said that I should just quit one of the jobs if I was so embarrassed of people from one workplace meeting me at the other. She also called me poor but she apologized for that. LOL. Aita here. I am obviously young so I don't know if I'm being immature. Camilla is upset at me. Stories number 28. My parents told me I'll be responsible for caring for my mentally ill older sister. My older sister has factitious disorder. It's a mental disorder that means she fakes being sick and having chronic illnesses for attention. For years my sister has claimed to have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, mast cell activation syndrome and postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. But she has never been diagnosed with any of these. She has seen hundreds of doctors not just in our province but all over the country and none of them have found anything physically wrong with her. She has no symptoms of any of these illnesses. She has never been diagnosed with them. However, multiple doctors and mental health professionals say she has an obvious case of factitious disorder, a blatant one. If you looked at my sister's social media you would think she was taking all kinds of prescriptions and having all kinds of surgeries but she has no prescriptions for anything and aside from one minor procedure has never had surgery in her life. The minor procedure was an American doctor she found on the internet giving her a central line, without that doctor having examined her or seen her medical records. She found that doctor on the internet and paid in cash. My sister has been involuntarily committed to a psychiatric hospital several times. She has been investigated by the provincial healthcare system for fraud. Multiple times she has given herself sepsis by putting fecal matter in her central line, before it was removed, or in a cut or scrape she gave herself. I have no relationship with my sister and I haven't had contact with her in years. My parents and all of my grandparents are somewhat in denial. They acknowledge she has factitious disorder but they still enable her. The doctors and professionals involved in my sister's care have been clear that we should ignore anything my sister says about her illnesses. We should not engage with her on it, we should not comment on it, we should ignore anything she says about doctors or hospitals. And when she is at the hospital either because she is lying about having symptoms or because she has given herself sepsis we should not text call visit her. My parents and grandparents ignore all that and talk to her about medical stuff and visit her in the hospital anywhere. Despite the doctors clearly saying for them not to. Whenever my sister is in psychiatric care her visitors are restricted or are supervised for this reason. Sometimes when she is in the regular hospital for lying about having symptoms or for sepsis the doctors will put a no-visitor policy in place. They say that giving her attention makes it worse but sometimes my parents don't listen. My sister has been in involuntary psychiatric care a lot but they never have grounds to keep her permanently. She refuses to believe she has factitious disorder and won't get treatment on her own. Since my sister can't hold down a job or a place to live my parents often financially support her or let her live with them. They have started telling me that one day I'll be expected to look after her or give her financial support. They have already started asking me for money and I always said no. My parents said I will be legally responsible for her. I checked with a couple of lawyers and all of them said there are no laws in our province that say I have to financially be responsible for my sister or my parents. I have no plans to ever be in contact with my sister again and my parents are upset at me. They say my grandparents can't do it because of their age and my aunt already said no. There is no other family to help but I don't think this is my problem. I honestly don't care about my sister. She is a destructive person and bad person and I don't want anything to do with her. She is almost 30 and acts like a child. My parents say I'm bad sister for thinking that but it doesn't matter to me. I'll never be responsible for her. I don't know why they think it is my responsibility. I never signed up for that and I don't want anything to do with her. Stories number 29. I'm not moving in with my boyfriend because of my cat. I've been dating my 24F boyfriend, 26M, for a bit over a year now, and he really wants me to move in with him. The problem? My cat. My cat is 16 and dying. The vet says it would be unwise to hope for anything past 6 months. I've had this cat since I was a child, he was there for me through everything. There are a few reasons I don't want to move. 1. Moving is really stressful for cats, and I don't want to cause any unneeded stress for my old boy. 2. My boyfriend has a fairly energetic Rottweiler. My cat has never been good with dogs, almost killed when he was 2 years old, we had to amputate his leg it was so badly crushed injured. I understand my boyfriend wants me to be close to him, I want that too, but is it really so much to ask for a few months for my cat to pass away? It hurts me so much that he keeps calling me unfair and not committed in this relationship, I am. But my longest friend is dying, and I want him to be comfortable. He doesn't seem to grasp how important my cat is to me. He has never liked cats, and even made the joke, when he's gone I will finally be your number one man. I don't know how to handle this at all. Any advice is welcome. Edit, for formatting. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. If he has a dog how can he not understand what it's like to love an animal? Reply. He doesn't think cats actually have emotions or something. He's one of those people who thinks cats are evil and dogs are a saving grace, which was fine before. I understand not liking cats is almost as common as liking them. Commenter 2. I get that he might not like the cat himself but not why he doesn't understand how you feel about the cat. Commenter 3. You will not be able to forgive yourself if you make last days of your loved cat to have some extra stress or hardship due to moving in with your BF. There are reasonable chances that you break up with your BF over something. You will feel enormous guilt if you move in. Don't trade last precious days of your loved one for anything. Reply. I'm not, there is no way in hell I'm moving out until after my boy dies. We will see how it goes after, but I'm really hurt by his behavior. Update. First off, let me say I'm still shaking so if this is a rambled mess I am sorry. All your kind words from yesterday made me cry, thank you all so much. I thought I would give some backstory to how my BF and I met. It was through a support group, as I mentioned. Growing up, until age 7, I had a very abusive dad. When I was 7 he tried to kill my mother and I, luckily the cops intervened and they took him away. My mom charged him and he got put away. When the trial was done, we moved, and my mom gave me Moo Moo, don't judge the name, I was 8, from a local shelter. I didn't fit in at the new school, and Moo Moo was the best thing in my life. Back to the support group. I shared my story, and my BF confronted me after saying he also had abusive parents growing up, and we bonded over our similar situations. I didn't realize how much control he had over me until recently. He convinced me to stop seeing my therapist. We also stopped going to group. He used to tell me what to wear, how to style my hair, it's very curly, and recently I've been straightening it because he would always say it looked better. A few hours ago, I invited him over for lunch and to talk. Luckily, Moo Moo was in my room sleeping. I told him what you guys said, saying that if it was his dog he would be upset. He blew up. He told me that wasn't the point. The point was I wasn't committed to him, or didn't care about us. He started throwing things, a glass, some books I had lying about, and some picture frames. It was terrifying. I had never seen him this angry before, and I just reverted back to what I used to do as a kid. Curl up, cover yourself as much as you can, stay quiet. Bless my roommate, who came home during this fit. She had brought the security guard because as she was walking in she heard the shouting items breaking. My BF was escorted out. As he left I just screamed, "Don't come back." I hope it sticks. I've blocked his number, and my landlady has been notified not to let him in, as have the guards. Next step is neighbors. I don't really know what to do from here. I emailed my therapist, hopefully she will let me come back. My mom is on the way over right now, and my roommate is with me too. I'm so terrified. I didn't realize how much control he had over me. I thought all his early behaviors was just because he had clingy issues from his own upbringing. I'm going to have a bath, relax, let my hair go curly again, and cuddle my baby. I'm really glad Moo Moo was in my room. Thank you all for the help. I didn't think any of this was wrong until you guys brought it up. I still love him, and feel bad for him. He had a shit upbringing too, and I'm sure he's messed up from it, but I'm going to try to move on. After my cat dies, I'm going to move out from this place, to somewhere he doesn't know about. Thank you all again. Edit for everyone who wants to see Moo Moo, copy from another comment. I don't want to be identified in case anyone I know or in the future know find this, that's why I made a throwaway, as I do have a regular Reddit account. Imagine this, pretty big tomcat, mainly white with 3 huge black spots on his back, leg, and side of his head. Minus the back right leg, and yellow eyes. 8-year-old me thought he looked like a cow, and cows moo, hence the name Moo Moo. He's pretty derpy, but he's mine. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. As distressing as it must have been for you, I'm so glad he finally showed his true colors, but even more so that you were brave enough to end things for good. You're a strong woman, and getting back to therapy will make you stronger and more aware of the intentions of any future abusers who may want to prey on you because of what you've been through. By the way, curly hair is gorgeous. Seriously, wear your curls with pride. Reply. Thank you so much. Edit 2. Moved to tears again by all your comments. Thank you. I'm going to log off this account now, and hopefully never have a reason to use it again. Thank you all so much for the help, I love you all. Stories number 30. Aita for refusing to forgive my mother after what she did at my wedding. I got married 3 months ago, and my relationship with my mother has been on thin ice ever since. She has always been dramatic, but I never thought she'd go this far. For context, my mom has never liked my husband. She thinks I settled because he's not a doctor or lawyer like she wanted. She made little comments throughout our engagement but promised to behave at the wedding. I trusted her. Fast forward to the ceremony. Everything is perfect, until the officiant asks if anyone has any objections. My mother stands up. She starts crying and saying she just needs to speak her truth before it's too late. She goes on about how she doesn't think my husband is good enough for me and how she's only doing this because she loves me. Everyone is stunned. My dad, who is divorced from her, has to pull her away as I stand there in shock. My husband looks at me, waiting for me to say something, but I'm frozen. Eventually, she leaves, and we continue the ceremony, but the damage is done. Half of my guests are whispering. My husband's family is furious. I spend my reception smiling through tears. She sends a long text the next day saying she only wanted to protect me, and that I was wrong for not hearing her out. Now, my family is pressuring me to forgive her. They say she just had a moment and didn't mean to ruin my day. But I don't want to forgive her. I haven't spoken to her since, and she's acting like I'm the one breaking the family apart. Stories number 31. Aita for saying my brother created the mess blending his family and I can't change that. In the last 4 years my brother lost his first wife, the mother of his 13-year-old son and 12-year-old daughter, met his second wife at a widow's support group and started hooking up with her within 8 months of both their spouses' deaths, introduced her to the kids and realized they didn't like it, moved her in and married her anyway, had a kid with her and got her pregnant again, current. Now he's shocked the kids are disinterested in building a relationship with his wife and don't consider his younger child or the unborn baby siblings. Family members suggested therapy to my brother a few times and giving the kids some more time to adjust to their mom being gone before moving in someone else and marrying her. I was one of them. But he dismissed it. He said everything would be fine. The part where I come in was brought up after a fight between him and the kid at our sister's house. It was her 10-year-old's birthday and we were all present. Siblings' photos were being taken throughout the party, both birthday kid and siblings and other siblings present. My brother wanted a photo of all 3 of his kids but the older 2 refused. He tried to pass the 8-month-old to them and neither would hold her. He said he wanted a sibling photo and they said it would be just the 2 of them then. It ended up in a fight over the half title and my brother asked if she was half of a person or half related to them. They said to them yes she was and so was the baby his wife was expecting. His son said he'd be out of the house before either would remember them so it wasn't his problem to worry about their feelings when my brother brought up the feelings of the younger kids and how upset they'd be to have that rejection. Other stuff was argued over but the 2 kids made it clear they didn't love their half-sibling and weren't willing to try and love her either. A few days after the party my brother came to my house and he said things were fucked and he was tired of our parents and sisters doing nothing to help. I asked what he expected them to do. He said we could all get through to his kids that they have another sibling and one more on the way and another mother figure and their family has grown and they need to be open to loving and accepting them. I pointed out our mom had spoken to them about it before, about at least not outright rejecting the idea of a friendly relationship but they were still unhappy with things and didn't listen. He said we could have done better. I told him we tried to tell him but he refused to listen and there was nothing more we could do, that he was their dad and had the final say. Then he said we should do more. I said we couldn't and that he made a mess of blending his family and there was nothing I or anyone could do to change it. I said the whole thing was on him. He said I was as bad as our family and we're meant to be brothers and where's the compassion for him and his wife who lost spouses already and just wanted a family together before it was too late. Aita, stories number 32, found out I was pregnant, reached out to my ex about it only to be told more bad news. I, F27, found out I was pregnant, my ex, M37, had just broken. Doing the right thing, I reached out to let him know, only for him to make fun of me in front of people and claim I was lying about being pregnant or it was someone else's baby. To add on to that I found out he had been seeing someone else, we had split less than a week and he had found someone else clearly that person was always in the picture. The worst part was finding out that he had several kids with multiple women. To say that my heart is broken is an understatement. I'm trying my best to not be angry and bitter about the whole situation but I feel guilty, that I dated a person who is a deadbeat and doesn't acknowledge his kids. What hurt even more was trying to figure out what decision to make, concerning the pregnancy. Decided to get an abortion and went by myself, as it would have been a horrible decision to bring a child into this mess. I have so much guilt and regret right now, plus the anger from the way my ex treated me. I feel like it's unfair that people like him get away with anything. I will probably pay for this as actions have consequences. I just had to let this all out. Stories number 33. How do I get my female friends to stop talking about their dating troubles with me? I hate hearing it because like dog women are so privileged in this aspect it's not even funny. But I don't want to get into it with them saying how I feel so I just try to get away. I do not want to hear about how a guy you're seeing isn't making enough, tall enough or whatever else is the reason. Every time I try to excuse myself or get away they just end up following me, texting me, or some shit happens and I end up in that predicament all over again. I did have a history of trying to be friends with girls I like to, warm approach, building familiarity, but it never worked and I stopped doing it because they went out with guys the total opposite. I'm thinking I'm still doing something unknowingly that makes them comfortable enough to do this. But shit, all I'm doing is being myself. Last few weeks I've been trying to distance myself from them but days ago they texted me they were drunk at a club and they needed a ride and the guys looked creepy there. I wanted to say no so badly but I wouldn't have been able to sleep that whole night. So I picked them up and dropped them off individually. But this made is so much worse. These past couple of days, whatever it is. This shit is a specific type of hell. Sorry for the rant. Edit, thank you guys for your words. I'm really thankful full and have much to do. I don't know why women are responding. This is Ask Men. If I wanted to ask everyone I would have went to askreddit or something. Stories number 34. Wibta if I say something to my in-laws about giving my kids candy, newly discovered food allergy. Update, thanks you all for being amazing with all the advice. I appreciate it. Also huge shout out to the allergy mom who informed me of Hershey's cross-contamination issue. I do want to point out the reaction happened the day after my husband got off a 7-month deployment. We went to Disney 4 days later, so we did our research on Disney. He was great and helped out a ton. He takes our daughter and my allergies very seriously. The incident with Emil happened the day after we got home from Disney. Same day of her blood work. After reading these comments, I brought up the Hershey stuff with him and he got wide-eyed and said he was definitely saying something to his mom. He is waiting on the results and wanted to send the results with what he said. He was upset, but it wasn't the time to say anything. That's why he snatched the candy and threw it away. He was overwhelmed and caught off guard, as was I. We are going to make a list of approved places to eat, things that are safe, and candy that is safe, and if Emil goes against those things we will go NC and file a police report. Okay, so the title sort of explains it. 3 weeks ago our youngest had a reaction to peanuts after our 3-year-old gave her a Reese cup. We tried getting blood work initially and it was a fail. So our next appointment was 2 days ago for blood work. It will take a whole week to learn results. They are scanning for peanuts, tree nuts, and coconuts. We've been told to avoid all of those items together until results come back. We do not have an EpiPen. Since all of this is going on, I told my parents and my in-laws no candy whatsoever for Valentine's Day or Easter because a lot of candy is made in the same factories as nuts being processed, and until we knew more I wanted to keep our LO safe. Also, husband hates when they get candy. We have picky eaters and all they want is candy, so we already said no candy, but this gave us the excuse to tell others. Fast forward to yesterday, my Emil drops off our oldest who has a bag full of candy and then hands our 3-year-old a big sucker and a Hershey bar. She then goes, "I know y'all said no candy, I originally bought Reese cups then remembered baby's allergy so got this instead." I just smiled, because we've already had a falling out before and I'm just keeping the peace. Fast forward to inside the house and husband said, "I like the caps on those suckers where you can save them. They are really cool." And I just go, "Yeah they are. We did say no candy though," and he said, "Yeah I know." So here's my question, obviously I'm not going to confront Emil. But I do want to bring the topic up to my husband again because Easter will be coming up. We are positive our youngest has a peanut allergy. And I'm not comfortable with my children specifically getting any candy until I do more research and we test a few things. I'm not saying cut off candy altogether, just for Easter. She is more than welcome to give her other 5 grandkids candy. But I personally don't want my girls getting any until we have a second opinion. So Wibta, if I tell him to be more stern with his mom and make a deal out of baby's safety for just this one holiday. My mom understood and followed my directions and gave something else instead and then gave my niece-nephew candy. And so did my dad and his wife. I know it was a sucker and a Hershey bar. But Hershey has products with nuts in them. I'm nervous about cross-contamination with no EpiPen or research under my belt. Stories number 35. Aita for making my husband a smoothie but the exact way he wanted. My husband, 26M, asked me, 30F, to make him a smoothie. He told me to add honey by adding it to a cup then microwave it. I did it the way I wanted by dissolving it in water before mixing it in. When he saw what I did, he got upset because he wanted me to warm the honey in the microwave instead. Then, he overloaded the blender past the max line and got frustrated when it didn't blend properly. At that point, he started raging at me, saying he won't forget my impatience and making other complaints about me. I told him that if he had made me a smoothie, I would just be grateful that he did it at all, but he snapped back, saying, "Why would I want a shitty smoothie?" I felt really unappreciated because I was just trying to help. Aita for not making the smoothie the way he wanted, or is he being unreasonably ungrateful? Stories number 36. My 29M girlfriend, 27F, will share a room with her male friend on a cruise. What is my play here? I haven't spoken to her since the disagreement. To preface all of this, me, 29M, and my GF, 27F, are in a relationship for like 5 months. We met on Tinder and we hit it off instantly as our first date was the most amazing date I've ever been to. Before we first met she used to have this hot girl summer, where she met with different guys for a sole purpose of having fun, but then we met and we decided to be in a relationship after like 2 months of dating. She is very outgoing and has many friends in opposite to me, an introvert. Like 4 months ago they had this trip planned and bought tickets. It's a 2 weeks trip to the other side of the world, and even though she tried to convince me to go with them I decided not to, because I've barely known any of them and it's expensive and I have tons of work currently. So moving on to the trip, there were supposed to be 2 couples in her, but one of her friends recently broke with his GF, she cheated on him, and now it's just my girlfriend, this guy and a couple. This guy, 27M, and my GF are friends for like 10 years. On this trip they have one-night trip planned on a luxurious cruise and she says there is no space left and she has to share a room with this guy. I am mad not only because of just a trip, but she told me about this situation at the end of her friend's birthday party and she even wanted to tell me afterwards, because she was afraid I would not come. I feel very conflicted and am not sure what to do. She said she loves me, but the way she told me about this whole thing makes me feel used and just dumb. All her friends knew and one of them was even trading me about that and she only told me then because I forced her into it. Stories number 37. Aita for telling my MIL to never undermine me in front of my children. Wife was out of town last weekend for work, so my MIL volunteered to take our 12-year triplets to a movie. Before she got to our house to pick them up I asked my daughter to clean up the mess she made in the kitchen. I asked 2 more times after that, and when my MIL arrived it still wasn't done. I was staring to get upset, so I asked her again in a more stern tone. She tried to argue back that she did, so I asked about the kettle on the stove that still had food in it. It was at this point that my MIL started criticizing me and saying it wasn't that big of a deal. When I mentioned that we were specifically working with the kids on cleaning up after themselves she dismissed me and started talking about when she sees things that I don't always put away like tools and stuff. When they got back I pulled her off to the side. I told her that I appreciate everything she does for us, but with all due respect please do not undermine me in front of my kids again, and that I felt extremely disrespected. If she ever disagrees with something I say or do she is welcome to pull my aside and talk about it in private, but never in front of the kids. Of course she left crying and my wife isn't speaking to me. Aita here. ETA, since it's been asked a couple of times, I think my wife isn't talking to me because she's struggling to reconcile me making her mom cry while still being right. Stories number 38. My friend keeps complaining that she's single but won't talk to men she likes. I have a friend, let's call her Emily, 28F, who keeps complaining that she's single. She called me the other day saying she wants to get married by 30 and she feels like a failure for not getting married by that timeline. She also said she's getting older, and when I tell her I'm older than her, 29F, and happily single, she said she's scared she'll end up like me. Emily had a crush on a guy at work, and I told her to ask him out for drinks after work or coffee before work, or during the weekends. She shot me down, saying she wanted him to approach her. I asked her how she expected him to know that she wanted that. She said men should always ask women out and he should have the balls to ask her out. She also said she finds men who take the initiative hot, and she wants a traditional man who makes more than her and can provide for her. She then complained how men in her city never ask her out, and how all the men that do ask her out are assholes. I told her it'll probably benefit her if she asks a guy out once in a while, but she said I should respect her boundaries on this and this is something she will not compromise on. I'm tired. Stories number 39. Aita for confronting a colleague who said she'd date me if I weren't Indian. I'm a 27M of Kashmiri Pandit descent, currently in my 2nd year of surgical residency at a top US hospital. Things were great initially, but over the past few months, some American friends' colleagues have made backhanded compliments about how I don't seem Indian. They claim I'm cooler because I lack the accent, eat non-vegetarian food, and don't look Indian. I have lighter skin as a lot of Kashmiri people have and a cauliflower ear from wrestling growing up in Haryana, which has a strong wrestling culture. They even mock my ears, saying, "We didn't know your people wrestled." I've tried explaining that India is diverse. We have 1.4 billion people with varying accents, diets, and appearances. But they brush it off, saying I should be grateful people don't associate me with Indians as they are not seen as cool as other minorities. This includes an attending who recently said, "You're Indian. You don't look like one." Last week, at a resident meetup party, a friend of mine, 26F, sitting a little far from me and she and another girl were talking about their dating lives when she said, "I'd have dated him if he wasn't Indian," pointing at me. I snapped and told her, even if you wanted to, I wouldn't date someone with your values. She started crying, and now my colleagues are calling me an AH. They claim she liked me and was insecure, so her comment wasn't malicious. But after months of these microaggressions, I'm exhausted. Aita for shutting her down. I'm tired of being told I'm not like those Indians, while working alongside dozens of Indian colleagues, some South Indian, some American-born, etc., who face the same stereotypes. My friends say I overreacted, but I feel disrespected, not just for me, but for my culture. Some additional points. My cauliflower ear is from wrestling in Haryana, which they'd know if they ever asked instead of assuming Indians don't do rough sports. 40% of our residents are Indian, yet the stereotyping persists. I'm now getting the cold shoulder for embarrassing her, but I'm done being their acceptable Indian. So, Reddit, was I the AH? Thank you guys. Thank you all for your positive comments and I'll keep in mind all of your advice.